Chapter 42, 91. The woman nodded, indicating that there was no need to be so courteous. Then she walked towards Lin Feng and said, "Brother, you're really powerful. You killed a subimmortal holy devil so easily. I'm Xia Rushuan. May I know your name?" Lin Feng looked at Xia Rushuan indifferently. He didn't have a good impression of the Dao Saint Palace. Therefore, he wasn't interested in befriending them. Lin Feng couldn't be bothered with the woman. Just as he was about to leave, Xia Rushuan's younger sister suddenly exclaimed, "Sister, the sect has found the whereabouts of the Holy Devil Emperor. They're summoning us." Lin Feng stopped when he heard the female cultivator's words. The people of the Dao Saint Palace were really resourceful. They actually managed to find the demonic Saint Emperor. He could make use of these people and follow them to find the Holy Devil Emperor. In fact, Lin Feng knew this as well. Now, ordinary Saint Devil fruits had limited effect on his cultivation. He needed to find a sage devil fruit of the immortal realm. Only then could he raise his cultivation. The holy devil fruits he had obtained before were only subimmortal holy devil fruits. Lin Feng had only killed the Holy Devil Emperor casually. Lin Feng didn't necessarily choose to refine a subimmortal holy devil fruit. This was because even if he refined it, the effects on his body wouldn't be particularly ideal. Therefore, he might as well leave it for his woman. However, the holy devil fruit formed by the Holy Devil Emperor was different. Even the holy devil fruits formed by the loose, immortal holy devils couldn't be compared to the Holy Devil Emperor's holy devil fruit. They weren't even on the same level. Apart from the Holy Demon Emperor's holy demon fruit, the Holy Demon Emperor also knew many secrets. Lin Feng knew that if he could suppress the Holy Demon Emperor, he would be able to obtain many benefits. "Young master, do you want to join us to deal with the Holy Devil Emperor? We'll definitely give you a share of the loot." Xia Rushuan invited. "I'll do as you say." Lin Feng cupped his fists. Then, the group quickly rushed to the rendezvous point. On the way, Lin Feng introduced himself. The two of them could be considered acquaintances, and they chatted a lot along the way. Lin Feng obtained a lot of information from Xia Rushuan. When Lin Feng had been searching for holy devils, he hadn't been able to find any traces of holy devils. The first reason was that a large number of holy devils had died during this period of time. The second reason was that when the Holy Devil Emperor was born, about 100 holy devils had sacrificed themselves to help the Holy Devil Emperor transcend his tribulation. There weren't many holy devils left to begin with. After sacrificing themselves to help the Holy Devil Emperor emerge, there were very few holy devils left. Moreover, most of their cultivations were not particularly strong. Upon hearing this news, Lin Feng's mood was actually quite bad, because he was still thinking of killing more holy devils to break through his cultivation. The holy devil fruit of the subimmortal realm was no longer of much use. Lin Feng could only kill holy devils of the itinerant immortal realm and above to help him break through. But now, it seemed like this was just an extravagant hope. Even if he could kill the Holy Devil Emperor, he probably wouldn't be able to break through with just the holy devil fruit. After all, Lin Feng was different from ordinary people. Lin Feng's accumulation was too great. It was too difficult for him to break through. Is Lin Gongzi thinking of breaking through with the holy devil fruit? Xia Rushuan was a meticulous person. She couldn't help but ask. "That's right." Lin Feng nodded. "With Lin Gongzi's cultivation, if he joins our Dao Saint Palace, he'll definitely be able to obtain the position of a deacon. The position of a deacon is already quite high. He'll be given some Dao source every year. With the Dao source, breaking through won't be a problem." Xia Rushuan said. "Dao source? What's that?" Lin Feng asked curiously. "It's a type of great Dao origin, created by the ancient weapon Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram. After devouring it, it'll be of great help to one's cultivation. There's a Tao Source Immortal Palace in our Tao Saint Palace. It's said that the Tao Source Immortal Palace stores the Tao Source Immortal Palace that has been formed over tens of thousands of years. It's the most sacred place in our Tao Saint Palace. Xia Rushuan said, Tao Source Immortal Palace. Lin Feng's eyelids twitched. What a great opportunity! What a great opportunity! Originally, Lin Feng was still worried that he wouldn't be able to break through to Emperor Realm with the help of the Holy Devil Fruit. But now that he knew of another way to break through, he was delighted. Should he sneak into the Tao Saint Palace and think of a way to rob the Tao Source Immortal Palace? Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile. This trip to the Tao Saint Palace is inevitable. The Demon Lord's voice resounded in Lin Feng's mind. Demon Lord, you want to devour the Tao Source Immortal Palace's Tao Source Immortal Palace too? Lin Feng asked curiously. Of course, I've heard of this Tao Source before. It's extremely effective. If we can obtain enough Tao Source Immortal Palace's Tao Source, we can all break through. Bibi, Xiaolong, Emperor Archaic, the immemorial ancestral insect, the dragon rabbit, the insect swarm, and even your avatar can break through. The Tao Saint Palace's Tao Source Immortal Palace has been accumulating for tens of thousands of years. It's definitely enough for us. The Demon Lord chuckled. Lin Feng couldn't help but look forward to it. He couldn't wait to rob the Tao Source Immortal Palace. He looked at Xia Rushuan and said, After we kill the Saint Devil Queen, I'll have to trouble you to introduce me. Of course, Xia Rushuan said with a smile. Soon, they arrived at another area. Many cultivators from the Tao Saint Palace were gathered here. Senior Brother Yang Long Tian. After arriving, a group of people bowed to a young man. This person was no ordinary person. It was said that he was one of the top 10 disciples of the Tao Saint Palace and was a super genius. Although he was only a subimmortal, it was said that he could fight against a rogue immortal. Although he wasn't as heaven-defying as Di Ju Yi, it was still terrifying enough. Yang Longtian nodded. Suddenly, Yang Longtian frowned slightly. He looked at Lin Feng in the crowd. This was his first time seeing Lin Feng, so he was unfamiliar with Lin Feng. Who's this? Yang Longtian asked. Xia Rushuan said, Senior brother, this is Lin Feng, Lin Gongzi, a friend of mine. He's very strong and will soon join the Tao Saint Palace, so I brought him along to kill the Saint Devil King. Humph, Yang Longtian suddenly snorted and said, So he's not a disciple of the Tao Saint Palace yet? Since he's not a disciple of the Tao Saint Palace, what right does he have to participate? There are many experts in the Tao Saint Palace, so there's no need for outsiders to participate. After that, Yang Longtian turned to look at Lin Feng and said coldly, Kid, there's nothing for you to do here. You can scram now. Chapter 42, 92. Xia Rushuan's expression turned grave when she heard Yang Longtian humiliating Lin Feng. This was because she had already said that Lin Feng was her friend. Yang Longtian could ask Lin Feng to leave, but there was no need for him to speak so harshly. In fact, there was a reason why Yang Longtian did not give Xia Rushuan any face. Firstly, Yang Longtian was a cultivator under Di Jue. Xia Rushuan, on the other hand, was under another genius from the Tao Saint Palace who had a chance to fight for the position of palace master in the future. Therefore, on the surface, both parties might consider that they were disciples of the same sect and would not directly fall out with each other. However, they would secretly fight to the death. Secondly, Di Jue had broken through to the bodiless, immortal realm earlier. This had greatly boosted the morale of the Tao Saint Palace cultivators, who had sided with Di Jue. With Di Jue's support, these people were a little complacent. Senior Brother Yang, what do you mean by this? Xia Rushuan's beautiful face turned cold. Although Xia Ruxuan was not ranked in the top 10 of the Tao St. Palace disciples, she was still ranked in the top 10. However, she was also a figure in the top 20, and her status was quite extraordinary. Yang Longtian did not give Xia Ruxuan any face. Naturally, she was enraged. She went tit for tat with Yang Longtian. The surrounding Tao St. Palace disciples were shocked. They did not expect Yang Longtian and Xia Ruxuan to argue at this time. Both of them had extraordinary statuses in the sect. It would be fine if they were just having a small argument. However, if they were to fight, the implications would be too great. Junior Sister Xia, remember your identity. You're from the Tao St. Palace. What? Are you going to help an outsider deal with your senior brother in the sect? Everyone in the sect is watching. Yang Longtian said nonchalantly. This fellow had a knife hidden in his smile. He looked extremely sinister. His words were like a needle hidden in silk floss. If Xia Ruxuan insisted on arguing with Yang Longtian, she would inevitably be criticized. Lin Feng said, "Fairy, let me deal with this matter." Xia Ruxuan looked at Lin Feng. When she saw Lin Feng's confident expression, she thought of Lin Feng's powerful strength and nodded. She also wanted to see how Lin Feng would deal with this matter. "Come here," said Lin Feng to Yang Longtian, beckoning him with his finger. It was as if he was ordering his servants around. Usually, it was extremely impolite to beckon others to go over with a finger. This sort of behavior was extremely offensive. What more now? This was an extremely sensitive time. Therefore, when they saw Lin Feng beckoning Yang Longtian over with his finger, the corners of their mouths twitched violently. As one of the top 10 disciples of the Tao St. Palace, Yang Longtian's strength was unfathomable. His prestige among the disciples was extremely high. That was why Lin Feng looked down on him so much. Naturally, Yang Longtian was furious. "Brat, do you know what you are doing?" Yang Longtian looked coldly at Lin Feng, his eyes flashing with killing intent. If one's gaze could kill someone, Lin Feng had probably been killed 1,000,000 times by Yang Longtian's ferocious gaze. Lin Feng said coldly, "I asked you to come over. Didn't you hear me? Are your ears not working? Is this brat crazy? This brat dares to humiliate senior brother Yang Longtian like this. I think he's just digging his own grave. This brat is too arrogant, but he seems to have chosen the wrong person to be arrogant against. Just wait and see. This brat is dead meat." The disciples of the Tao St. Palace started to discuss. Many people felt that Lin Feng was digging his own grave. Offending Yang Longtian would definitely not end well. Digging your own grave. Digging your own grave. You're really digging your own grave. This is the first time I've seen someone digging their own grave, like you. Yang Longtian looked coldly at Lin Feng, his eyes flashing with killing intent. He took a step forward and walked towards Lin Feng. His body exuded an extremely terrifying aura. Many disciples of the Tao St. Palace who were closer felt the terrifying aura from Yang Longtian's body and couldn't help but tremble. "How dare you boast that you can destroy an ant with a flick of a finger?" Lin Feng said indifferently. His words were too pretentious. Many people couldn't help but smile bitterly after hearing Lin Feng's words. Let's not talk about Lin Feng's cultivation first. Lin Feng's ability to anger others was definitely second to none. Yang Longtian was so angry at Lin Feng that his body trembled. "Brat, I'll take your life." Yang Longtian roared and sent a palm strike towards Lin Feng. Yang Longtian unleashed a powerful divine ability. His ability was called the Great Heaven-Shattering Palm. It was rumored to be a powerful ability created by a titled god during the era of titled gods. Once this divine ability was unleashed, it would be extremely dangerous. It would destroy Buddha if it met Buddha, destroy God if it met God. It was powerful. It was shocking. Yang Longtian instantly arrived in front of Lin Feng. His terrifying palm strike was about to hit Lin Feng. That brat won't be killed by senior brother Yang Longtian's palm strike, right? That's really possible. Discussions broke out everywhere. Many people felt that Lin Feng might not even be able to take a single strike from Yang Longtian and would be beaten to death. Isn't Lin Gongzi underestimating his opponent too much? Xia Rushuan couldn't help but worry for Lin Feng. She knew that Lin Feng was very strong. But Yang Longtian was too terrifying. Yang Longtian's attack was about to hit Lin Feng, but Lin Feng still hadn't prepared any ability. Xia Rushuan felt that Lin Feng was too careless this time. He was still so careless when facing an expert like Yang Longtian. He would probably suffer a great loss. Scram! Facing Yang Longtian's attack, Lin Feng didn't even make a move. He just shouted coldly, and a powerful aura spread out. Lin Feng's terrifying aura directly hit Yang Longtian's body. Yang Longtian's attack was instantly interrupted. As for Yang Longtian himself, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. His body flew backward, and he coughed up blood in midair. Oh my God, what did I just see? Impossible. This is impossible. My eyes must be playing tricks on me, right? Many cultivators couldn't help but exclaim. They didn't dare to believe what they were seeing. Yang Longtian was an existence that could challenge rogue immortals, but he couldn't withstand Lin Feng's aura. This was too inconceivable. P.S. There was a mistake in the previous chapter. Lin Feng broke through to the Holy Emperor realm. It was written as breaking through to the Emperor Grandmaster realm, but it has been corrected. Brothers and sisters, please come to QQ to read or subscribe to the Archean Dragonesque Elephant Technique. It's more than 10 yuan a month, please. Life isn't easy. My wife is about to give birth. I want to earn some money for milk powder. Chapter 4293. I can't believe he's so powerful. Xia Rushuan's pretty face was filled with shock and emotion. Lin Feng's strength had deeply shaken her to the core. Xia Rushuan had a feeling that everything was unreal. Xia Rushuan's younger sister, and the others were just as shocked as Xia Rushuan. Lin Feng's strength had overturned everything they knew. In their memories, Lin Feng was a young cultivator, but he had such combat strength. There were very few people like him. Even the top 10 disciples of the Tao Saint Palace could not do this. There were a few geniuses in the Tao Saint Palace who had broken through the Godstone and walked out. Only they could do this. This can't be real. This can't be real. This can't be real. Yang Longtian simply couldn't accept what was happening. He kept yelling and had already lost his composure. It was no wonder. He was such a proud person, but now all of his dignity had been trampled on by Lin Feng. This feeling almost drove him crazy. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Yang Longtian's eyes turned blood red. Yang Longtian, who had always been smooth sailing, had suffered such a heavy blow. He could not take it anymore. He swore. No matter what, he had to kill Lin Feng. He wanted revenge, and the only way was to kill Lin Feng. Only then could he avenge himself. Yang Longtian's body started burning. He was burning his essence blood to increase his combat strength. He was burning his essence blood to kill Lin Feng. Blazing sun burns the sky. Yang Longtian roared as he condensed a huge blazing sun. The blazing sun burned fiercely. Every time it burned, the terrifying light of the sun would distort the void. The blazing sun pressed down on Lin Feng. Lin Feng sneered. You don't know what's good for you. I didn't kill you just now out of respect for Fairy Xia Rushuan. If you want to die, I don't mind taking your life. Lin Feng's voice was extremely cold. He reached out his hand and slapped at Yang Longtian. A huge energy handprint condensed in the void. The energy palm instantly shattered Yang Longtian's condensed divine ability. Then he charged at Yang Longtian. "Spare me! Spare me!" Yang Longtian screamed in horror. That energy handprint was simply too terrifying. Yang Longtian simply couldn't contend against it. After sensing the energy handprint's aura, Yang Longtian was shocked. Yang Longtian felt a deep sense of despair. Lin Feng looked indifferent, ignoring Yang Longtian's pleas. He was about to kill Yang Longtian. Suddenly, a voice resounded. "Fellow Taoist, my disciple offended you and acted recklessly. Even 10 deaths wouldn't be enough to atone for his sins. However, I hope that you can spare him on account of his youth and ignorance. What do you think?" After hearing this voice, Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. Yang Longtian's lifespan was around 30,000 years old. His own was only a little over 100 years old. Lin Feng was rather speechless when the owner of this voice said that he would spare Yang Longtian on account of his youth and ignorance. Of course, Lin Feng didn't continue to attack Yang Longtian. The person who had spoken was definitely an expert at the level of a wandering immortal, and his cultivation level seemed to be rather high. Lin Feng dispersed the palm in the void and looked to his left. An old man stepped out of the void. "Forefather." Upon seeing the old man, the Tao Saint Palace's disciples all bowed to him. Lin Feng had heard that there were at least a dozen immortals in the Tao Saint Palace. To the disciples of the Tao Saint Palace, these immortals were naturally on the same level as the forefather. At this moment, everyone was extremely shocked because this ancestor called the young cultivator fellow Taoist. Didn't that mean that in the forefather's eyes, the young cultivator was on the same level as the forefather? Thinking of this, many people's hearts couldn't help but set off monstrous waves. "Who are you?" Lin Feng glanced at the old man and asked, "I am Wu Yazi of the Tao Saint Palace. How should I address you, fellow Taoist?" The old man asked with cupped fists, "Lin Feng, Lin Feng, Lin Feng, Lin Feng." Many people tried to recall this name, hoping to find someone like him in their memories. However, no one found anything. Wu Yazi said, "So it's fellow Taoist Lin. My apologies." He then looked at Yang Longtian and said, "You bastard, why aren't you kowtowing and apologizing to fellow Taoist Lin? I was wrong. Please forgive me, senior." Yang Longtian snapped out of his daze. Even the forefather was on the same level as this person. What was he to this cultivator? Thus, Yang Longtian kowtowed and begged for mercy. He used a lot of force and banged his head loudly on the ground. "Since fellow Taoist Wu is begging for mercy, I'll spare your worthless life. Remember, don't be so arrogant in the future." Lin Feng said coldly, Yes. This junior will remember." Yang Longtian quickly said. Now, he could finally heave a sigh of relief. His little life was saved. Many people smiled bitterly. The Tao Saint Palace was a terrifying power. Who would dare to offend it? But now, one of the top 10 disciples of the Tao Saint Palace was kowtowing and apologizing. After being forgiven, he even had a happy expression. This made everyone feel complicated. "Fellow Taoist Lin, there are 2 other fellow Taoists waiting for me not far away. Why don't you come with me? If we work together to kill the Saint Devil Emperor, we can share all of his secrets. What do you think, fellow Taoist Lin?" Wu Yazi asked. "No problem." Lin Feng nodded. It was impossible for the disciples of the Tao Saint Palace to kill the Saint Devil Emperor. At most, they could only gather information. Wu Yazi then looked at the group of disciples of Tao Saint Palace and said, "I already know about the news of the Holy Demon Emperor. All of you can leave now. Don't go to the place where the holy demon emperor appears. Yes, ancestor, the disciples of the Tao Saint Palace hurriedly said. They originally wanted to kill the Saint Devil Emperor, but now that the ancestor had spoken, they naturally didn't dare to disobey. Fellow Taoist Lin, let's go now. Wu Yazi said with a smile. All right. Lin Feng nodded. Lin Feng then left with Wu Yazi. After they left, the disciples of the Tao Saint Palace were in an uproar. Sister, that Lin Gongzi is so powerful. I wonder if he'll join the Tao Saint Palace. If he does, can you help me and Lin Gongzi be together? Xia Rushuan's younger sister was called Xia Ruyue. She walked to Xia Rushuan's side and whispered. Chapter 4294. Xia Rushuan had always doted on her younger sister. However, after hearing Xia Ruyue's words, Xia Rushuan felt an inexplicable unhappiness in her heart. She did not expect her younger sister to fancy Lin Feng. However, this seemed to be something normal. Lin Feng was so young. He was so powerful. He was so handsome. He was simply the Prince Charming of every woman's dreams. Before Lin Feng, Xia Rushuan had only seen one person who could be compared to Lin Feng. That was Crown Prince Di Jue. However, Crown Prince Di Jue's character was gloomy and terrifying. He was also vicious and merciless. Crown Prince Di Jue's high and mighty attitude made Xia Rushuan feel extremely disgusted. Xia Rushuan did not have a good impression of Crown Prince Di Jue. On the other hand, although Lin Feng was also a heaven-defying character like Crown Prince Di Jue, Lin Feng's character was gentle and sunny. The more she looked at him, the more she liked him. The world of cultivators was different from the world of ordinary people. Ordinary people's feelings were reserved. However, cultivators' feelings were usually passionate. Cultivators knew how cruel this world was. Therefore, they would not hide their feelings. If it was something else, Xia Rushuan would definitely agree to Xia Ruyue's request. However, Xia Ruyue wanted Xia Rushuan to matchmake her with Lin Feng. This was something Xia Rushuan could not do. In other words, Xia Rushuan did not want to do this at all. Of course, Xia Rushuan did not want to hurt her sister too much. She said, "We don't know what will happen in the future. Let's observe the situation first before we talk about this." Okay. Xia Ruyue also felt that her sister's words made sense. Therefore, she quickly nodded. On the other side, Lin Feng and Wu Yazi quickly met up with two other people. These two people were also experts from the Tao Saint Palace. One of them was called Emperor Bai Yin. This person had the appearance of a middle-aged cultivator. He had a square face and was imposing without being angry. The other person was called Xia Yuanxiang. This person had a deep relationship with Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue. It was said that Xia Yuanxiang was an elder of their clan who had sealed themselves in the divine stone. In fact, Xia Yuanxiang wasn't that old. She looked to be in her 30s, charming and mature. She was simply flirtatious. Back then, when he sealed himself, he cultivated for 250,000 years. In the world of cultivators, this age could be considered extremely young. Her talent was very strong, and in addition, it was a golden age for cultivation back then. So her cultivation improved very quickly. Who is this fellow Taoist? Xia Yuanxiang looked at Lin Feng in surprise. Xia Yuanxiang was very puzzled that Wu Yazi would bring such a young cultivator here. Wu Yazi said, "This fellow Taoist is Lin Feng." Xia Yuanxiang and Bai Yendi were both very surprised. Wu Yazi's cultivation was stronger than theirs. However, Wu Yazi actually called this excessively young human cultivator fellow Taoist. This meant that Wu Yazi valued this young human cultivator very much. Could it be that this young human cultivator had the same strength as Wu Yazi? This was too unbelievable, wasn't it? After all, he was so young. Of course, Xia Yuanxiang and Bai Yendi were both very knowledgeable and thoughtful people, although they were very shocked and had some doubts about Lin Feng's strength. They didn't know how strong he was. However, they didn't show it on their faces. Then Wu Yazi introduced Xia Yuanxiang and Bai Yendi to Lin Feng. Fellow Taoist Lin, this beautiful fairy is called Xia Yuanxiang. This fellow Taoist is called Bai Yendi. Nice to meet you. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, Fellow Taoist Lin, you're too kind. The two of them didn't dare to be negligent, so they cupped their fists and said, this was how they got to know each other. They didn't stop and quickly headed to the place where the holy demon emperor was hiding. Wu Yazi said, on the way here, I met a few groups of cultivators from the Tao Sacred Palace, so I asked them to disperse. Xia Yuanxiang said, that's good too. They can't participate in such a big battle. This time, the holy demon emperor was hiding in the Great World's blood refining mountain range. In the past, the blood refining mountain range was said to be a land of death. However, for some unknown reason, this land of death had been abandoned. It was no longer as strong as it used to be. When Lin Feng heard Wu Yazi and the others talking about the blood refining mountain range, he couldn't help but feel surprised. Lin Feng said, isn't this land of death supposed to hide countless secrets and dangers? How could such a place be abandoned? Wu Yazi said, it does sound a little unbelievable, but this land of death has indeed been abandoned. As for how it was abandoned, I don't know. A land of death was a place that even the mastermind didn't dare to set foot in. From this, one could see how terrifying a land of death was. However, the blood refining mountain range was now abandoned. It was really unbelievable. Of course, Lin Feng wouldn't bother thinking about this matter. Instead, he was thinking about how to get rid of the holy demon emperor. If he had the chance to take the holy demon emperor for himself, Lin Feng didn't mind taking the holy demon emperor for himself. 10 days later, they arrived at the outer region of the blood refining mountain range. Within 100 miles of the blood refining mountain range, blood qi was surging. The blood refining mountain range was located in the deepest part of the blood qi. The holy demon emperor must have devoured enough flesh and soul essences. Therefore, he's hiding inside to cultivate in seclusion to increase his strength, Wu Yazi said. Lin Feng nodded and said, so that's how it is. Let's be careful later. Don't fall into his trap. Wu Yazi and the others nodded. None of them dared to be careless when facing a terrifying existence like the holy demon emperor. After all, they would die miserably if they did. The four of them entered the area shrouded in blood mist and carefully walked inside. The blood refining mountain range was very large. After entering, the surroundings were very quiet. It was so quiet that it was a little strange. If it was in the past, they would have been attacked by many terrifying creatures after entering the land of death. However, even though there was no danger, Lin Feng and the others were still very cautious. Suddenly, a sinister laughter came from all directions. The holy demon emperor has discovered us, White Yama said in a deep voice. At that moment, a sinister voice resounded above the mountain range. Reckless fools! How dare you trespass into the blood refining mountain range? I'll make sure you die a horrible death later. As soon as the voice finished speaking, countless large arrays in the blood refining mountain range were activated. Lin Feng and the others were quickly separated by the large arrays. The holy demon emperor seemed to want to kill Lin Feng, and the others one by one. Chapter 42, 95. Lin Feng carefully sensed the great array around him and discovered that it was extremely powerful. The Great Array here was built on the basis of an abandoned land of death. It was completely different from ordinary Great Arrays. Therefore, the Great Array here was extremely terrifying. Even with Lin Feng's proficiency in formations, it wouldn't be easy for him to break it in a short amount of time. Lin Feng was very clear about this. Lin Feng looked around cautiously. He didn't know who the Saint Devil Emperor would attack first, but Lin Feng was very clear about one thing. No matter who the Saint Devil Emperor attacked first, the others wouldn't have it easy either. Everyone was separated by the Great Array. No matter who the Saint Devil Emperor came first, they would have to fight. Unless the person who fought the Saint Devil Emperor first was able to defeat the Saint Devil Emperor. Suddenly, Lin Feng sensed a gloomy qi, even though that gloomy qi was extremely weak. It was very faint, to the point that he couldn't sense it at all. If it were someone else, they might not be able to sense it at all. However, Lin Feng's senses were too strong. Although the other party had perfectly concealed his aura, it was impossible for him to hide it from Lin Feng. This guy has his eyes on me. Lin Feng thought. A thought flashed through Lin Feng's mind. In the next instant, Lin Feng used instant transmission and disappeared from where he stood. After Lin Feng disappeared, a black shadow appeared where he had originally been. The black shadow wanted to devour Lin Feng, but it missed. Lin Feng appeared tens of meters away. He looked coldly at the black shadow and said indifferently, "Is this all the Saint Devil Emperor has? I thought you were a powerful figure, but it turns out that you're just a pitiful worm who only knows how to sneak attack from behind." Keek keek. The black shadow laughed. The Shengma Emperor suddenly let out a sinister laugh and said, "Boy, your provocation won't work on me." Lin Feng shrugged and said, "I'm not trying to provoke you. You're not worthy of my provocation." The Saint Devil Emperor's face darkened. He had thought that he could deal with Lin Feng calmly, but now he was angered by Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng was best at arguing. He had never lost to anyone before. The Saint Devil Emperor was naturally no match for Lin Feng. Although he said that he didn't care about being ridiculed and looked down on, he didn't care. In reality, how could he not care about it? Such words were actually just self-deception. Of course, the Saint Devil Emperor wasn't an ordinary person. He gloomily looked at Lin Feng and said, "Brat, I can't be bothered to talk to you. I just want to eat you. You can die now." The Saint Devil Emperor rushed toward Lin Feng and sent a palm strike at Lin Feng. The Saint Devil Emperor's palm strike was so terrifying that Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. Facing the Saint Devil Emperor's attack, Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless. His avatar, the magic lotus, the ruler's armor, and the golden dwarf's power instantly fused with his body. Then Lin Feng sent a palm strike at the Saint Devil Emperor. Bang! The two sides fiercely collided. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt as if he had collided with an ancient mountain. Even the surrounding void was shattered by the shockwave. Numerous cracks appeared on the surface. As for Lin Feng, he was directly sent flying. The Saint Devil Emperor's combat power was so terrifying that Lin Feng couldn't help but be shocked. You can actually take my palm strike?" The Saint Devil Emperor stared at Lin Feng in disbelief. The fact that Lin Feng could take his palm strike had shocked the Saint Devil Emperor greatly. However, the Saint Devil Emperor then said contemptuously, "So what if you can take my palm strike? An ant is still an ant. I only used 30% of my strength earlier. If I were to get serious, you would already be dead. However, it's been a long time since I've met such a young and powerful cultivator like you. It wouldn't be fun to kill you directly, so I plan to have some fun with you. I want you to die in endless fear." "Oh, With just you? What shameless boasting. You even dare to say such words. The biggest difference between humans and animals is that humans have self-awareness, but you don't. Lin Feng replied indifferently. The corner of the Saint Devil Emperor's mouth twitched violently. Wasn't Lin Feng indirectly saying that he wasn't a human? How could the Saint Devil Emperor tolerate that? Darkness descends. The Saint Devil Emperor's cold voice resounded throughout heaven and earth. Following that, he walked step by step toward Lin Feng. Suddenly, darkness engulfed everything. It covered the sky and covered the sun. The light was completely devoured, leaving behind only eternal darkness. Lin Feng couldn't even see his own hands. In this world of darkness, even the slightest movement could make one tense up. Now that darkness had enveloped heaven and earth, if Lin Feng's guess was right, the Saint Devil Emperor would definitely take advantage of the darkness to launch a sneak attack on him. If it were other experts, they might not even bother to use such a method. However, the Saint Devil Emperor wasn't one of them. The Saint Devil Emperor was incomparably terrifying. If the Saint Devil Emperor launched a sneak attack in the darkness, the situation would be extremely dangerous. Lin Feng knew this very well. The situation seemed to be extremely disadvantageous for Lin Feng, but in reality, Lin Feng had a way to deal with it. Lin Feng took out the Primal Chaos Ancient Lamp. The Primal Chaos Ancient Lamp immediately dispersed the darkness and illuminated the surroundings. I see you. Lin Feng looked at the Saint Devil Emperor, who was a dozen meters away. The Saint Devil Emperor had been silently approaching Lin Feng, but he hadn't expected Lin Feng's treasure to disperse the darkness. Lin Feng had also discovered the Saint Devil Emperor. After being discovered by Lin Feng, the Saint Devil Emperor's expression turned cold. The Saint Devil Emperor hadn't lied earlier. He had only used 30% of his strength when he attacked. Therefore, even after being discovered by Lin Feng, the Saint Devil Emperor didn't panic. He just preferred to launch sneak attacks on others. His preference for sneak attacks was determined by his personality. In reality, the Saint Devil Emperor was incomparably powerful. Ultimate Saint Devil Fist. The Saint Devil Emperor sneered and threw a punch at Lin Feng. In the past, the Saint Devil Emperor was also an incomparably terrifying existence. However, his combat strength had been greatly reduced after he reincarnated. Back then, he had created the ultimate profound. It had even shocked the heavens. Although the Saint Devil Emperor's cultivation realm had fallen, he could still use the ultimate profound. The ultimate Saint Devil Fist was a terrifying punch that the Saint Devil Emperor had unleashed using the ultimate profound. After being enveloped by the Saint Devil Emperor's ultimate Saint Devil Fist, Lin Feng immediately felt the aura of death enveloping him. Chapter 4296. The Holy Devil Emperor's ultimate profound was truly worthy of its reputation. It was truly terrifying. Lin Feng couldn't help but take it seriously. After sensing the terrifying might of the ultimate profound, Lin Feng had no intention of fighting the Holy Devil Emperor head-on, because Lin Feng had too many powerful magic treasures on him. Seeing how terrifying the Holy Devil Emperor's ultimate profound was, Lin Feng decided to use all his magic treasures to deal with the Holy Devil Emperor. Therefore, there was no need for him to fight the Holy Devil Emperor head-on. What good would it do him to fight the Holy Devil Emperor head-on? There was no benefit at all. Swish! Lin Feng waved his hand. Suddenly, all kinds of magic treasures flew out. Seeing the various magic treasures floating in the air, Lin Feng's face revealed a confident expression. He activated more than a dozen powerful magic treasures and sent them flying towards the Holy Devil Emperor. Originally, the Holy Devil Emperor was full of confidence. In his opinion, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to resist his attack. But who would have thought that Lin Feng would take out so many magic treasures? Moreover, the power of these magic treasures was truly terrifying. Every single one of them contained unimaginably terrifying power. To be able to obtain such a magic treasure was a great opportunity. Lin Feng actually had so many powerful magic treasures. The Holy Devil Emperor couldn't help but be shocked. In truth, Lin Feng hadn't taken out some of his magic treasures to deal with the Holy Devil Emperor. For example, the ancient weapon, the devil bead, the ancient devil ring, the mysterious iron, and other treasures. Lin Feng still couldn't control these magic treasures for the time being. Lin Feng had only taken out a portion of the magic treasures that were easier for him to control and were more powerful. The demonic Saint Emperor's expression became extremely unsightly when he sensed the power emitted by the magic treasures. The Holy Devil Emperor couldn't help but feel that these magic treasures were very troublesome to deal with. Retreat. The Holy Devil Emperor's expression was very unsightly. He wanted to quickly suppress Lin Feng and then ruthlessly torture Lin Feng. But now, facing the attacks of Lin Feng's treasures, the Holy Devil Emperor had no choice but to quickly retreat. TSK, you boast so loudly, but when it comes to fighting, you're a coward. Lin Feng looked at the Holy Devil Emperor and mocked him. The Holy Demon Emperor was furious, but when he heard Lin Feng make fun of him, he was furious. The Shengma Emperor's face turned even uglier. He said coldly, "You're just relying on your Dharma treasure to commit murder. Is that something to be proud of? What a joke." Lin Feng pursed his lips and said, "You're the one who's funny, right? If you don't even understand this principle, then you must have lived your life in vain." The Holy Devil Emperor's expression was gloomy as he said, "Brat, I will soon make you kneel on the ground like a dog and beg me to spare your life." As soon as he finished speaking, the Holy Devil Emperor waved his hand. Suddenly, treasures flew out one after another. There were a total of 8 treasures. These 8 treasures were actually 8 small cauldrons. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. Where did these 8 small cauldrons come from? He felt that the Holy Devil Emperor had taken out the 8 small cauldrons at this time because he was very confident in them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken them out at such a crucial time. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter in his heart. He didn't know how strong the 8 small cauldrons were. Of course, no matter how strong the small cauldrons were, Lin Feng was incomparably confident in his treasures. "Brat, the 8 small cauldrons I took out are called the Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldrons. Rumor has it that these 8 small cauldrons were forged by the first Heaven and Earth Emperor during the era of titled gods. Once activated, the 8 small cauldrons will form a mysterious connection that can suppress the spirits of all heavens." The Holy Devil Emperor looked coldly at Lin Feng. "Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldrons? That's a pretty domineering name, but I think they're just 8 ordinary small cauldrons. You have the nerve to show them off." Lin Feng couldn't help but mock. 8 small cauldrons? The Holy Devil Emperor was furious when he saw Lin Feng looking down on his treasures. He gnashed his teeth and said, "I'll let you know how powerful my Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron is." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron flew towards Lin Feng under the Holy Devil Emperor's control. One could vaguely see the Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron forming an 8 trigrams diagram in the air. Lin Feng controlled a dozen powerful treasures to fly towards the Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron. However, when Lin Feng's treasures approached the Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron, many of them were greatly weakened. When the Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron flew over, the treasures were suppressed in the air. The Universe Immortal Suppressing Cauldron didn't have much offensive power. Its most powerful aspect was that it could suppress all kinds of treasures. Apart from suppressing treasures, it could also suppress cultivators. Lin Feng's treasures were many times stronger than the universe immortal suppressing cauldron. However, they were all suppressed by the universe immortal suppressing cauldron's special ability. None of the powerful magic treasures were able to display their full power. The universe immortal suppressing cauldron flew towards Lin Feng, trying to suppress Lin Feng as well. The situation was not good. At this moment, Lin Feng waved his hand, and the heaven-devouring jar flew out. The universe immortal suppressing cauldron tried to suppress Lin Feng's heaven-devouring jar, but the heaven-devouring jar emitted a powerful devouring power. The devouring power enveloped the universe immortal suppressing cauldron, trying to devour it. The heaven-devouring Devil Emperor's heaven-devouring jar. The Saint Devil Emperor's expression turned ugly when he saw the heaven-devouring jar. His universe immortal suppressing cauldron was not flawless. The universe immortal suppressing cauldron happened to be suppressed by the heaven-devouring jar. However, the Saint Devil Emperor soon heaved a sigh of relief. Because Lin Feng's sky-absorbing jar was incomplete, it wasn't complete. If it had been the complete heaven-devouring jar, that would have been too terrifying. The Saint Devil Emperor controlled the universe immortal suppressing cauldron to fly back. Lin Feng's heaven-devouring jar was unable to devour the universe immortal suppressing cauldron. Seeing the universe immortal suppressing cauldron break free from the heaven-devouring jar, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. Boy, I have to admit that I've underestimated you. There are no eternal enemies in this world, only eternal benefits. Why do we have to fight to the death? Why don't we work together to deal with the other three and devour their essences? Their cultivation levels are high, and their essences are very useful to us. After we devour their essences, we can sneak into the Tao Saint Palace and loot the Tao Origin Immortal Palace. Isn't that a win-win situation? What do you think of my suggestion? The Saint Devil Emperor suddenly said. He actually wanted to work with Lin Feng to deal with Wu Yazi and the others. Chapter 42, 97. The Saint Devil Emperor's suggestion was indeed not bad. However, Lin Feng did not intend to agree. Although Lin Feng did not have a good impression of the people from the Tao Saint Palace, Lin Feng was not a person who would go back on his word. Since he was going to work with Wu Yazi and the others to deal with the Saint Devil Emperor, he naturally would not turn around and scheme against Wu Yazi and the others with the Saint Devil Emperor. Not to mention, Lin Feng could not trust the Saint Devil Emperor's character. This fellow was sinister and cunning. If he really cooperated with this fellow, he might be tricked by this fellow in the end. However, it was not an easy task to deal with the Saint Devil Emperor in this great array. Lin Feng originally wanted to directly reject the Saint Devil Emperor, but on second thought, could he use this opportunity to feign civility with the Saint Devil Emperor, gain the trust of the Saint Devil Emperor, and then find an opportunity to deal with him? No matter what method he used against an unforgivable person like the Saint Devil Emperor, it would not be excessive. How many people had died miserably at the hands of the Saint Devil Emperor? Killing the Saint Devil Emperor was upholding justice on behalf of the heavens. Lin Feng said, "All right, I can cooperate with you." Hearing Lin Feng agree to his request, the Saint Devil Emperor immediately laughed sinisterly in his heart. "Brat, do you really think that I want to cooperate with you? I just want to borrow your strength to kill the other three. After killing them, I will launch a sudden sneak attack on you, kill you, and then devour your origin." The Saint Devil Emperor seemed to have already seen the scene of him killing Lin Feng. Of course, the Saint Devil Emperor knew that Lin Feng was a rather vigilant person. Perhaps Lin Feng would be on guard, making it impossible for him to find an opportunity to attack later. However, this was not a big deal. If he couldn't find an opportunity to attack later, he could find an opportunity to do so on the way to the Dao Saint Palace. No matter how cautious a person was, there would always be a time when they would reveal a flaw. Therefore, the Saint Demon Emperor believed that Lin Feng would also reveal a flaw, and when Lin Feng revealed a flaw, it would be the time when Lin Feng would die in his hands. The Saint Devil Monarch had been eyeing Lin Feng's bloodline for a long time. He was determined to devour Lin Feng. Ha 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 ha, that's great. You've made the right choice. I believe that if the two of us join forces, we'll be invincible. Let's go and kill the other three, the Shengma Emperor said. No problem, Lin Feng nodded. Light and shadow flashed before their eyes as the Holy Demon Emperor and Lin Feng arrived at another formation, trapping Wu Yazi within. As soon as they arrived, a violent fluctuation surged out. Xia Yuanxiang and the White Yama passed through the formation and reunited with Wu Yazi. Damn it! They're all from the Dao Saint Palace, so they must have a way to contact each other. Now that the three of them have gathered together, it'll be much more difficult to kill them. The Saint Devil Emperor said with a gloomy expression, said Lin Feng. Try to use a deployment spell to separate them, said Lin Feng. The Shengma Emperor curled his lips and said, it seems that you really don't know anything about great arrays. These three people have already been separated by the great array once. With their strength, they must have taken precautions. Although the great array is strong, it's not easy to separate loose immortals who are already on guard. I see. I've learned a lot. Lin Feng nodded. He pretended that he didn't know anything about formations. Lin Feng said, how about this? You attack them in the open, and I'll hide in the dark and ambush them. That way, we'll be able to catch them off guard. What do you think? The Saint Devil Emperor's eyes darted around. He was a suspicious person. Even though he had already cooperated with Lin Feng, he still didn't trust Lin Feng very much. The Shengma Emperor said, how about this? You go and meet up with them. Then you sneak attack them. Once you injure them, I'll immediately appear, and we'll kill them together. The Saint Devil Emperor was truly cunning. He actually wanted Lin Feng to ambush the three experts. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't do such a thing. Only a fool would agree to the Saint Devil Emperor's request. Lin Feng said, there are three of them, but I'm alone. If there's only one of them, I'll have a high chance of success if I ambush him. However, there are three of them. If I ambush them, I won't be able to ambush all three at once. At most, I'll be able to ambush one of them. That won't guarantee that I'll be able to kill the other one. If they suddenly surround me, I'll be in great danger. Don't be afraid. I'll show myself when the time comes, said the Saint Devil Emperor. Lin Feng looked at the Saint Devil Emperor with disdain. Do you think I'll believe your nonsense? The Saint Devil Emperor's gaze turned gloomy. Indeed, he hadn't expected Lin Feng to believe him. If Lin Feng had believed him, he would have suspected Lin Feng instead. The Saint Devil Emperor asked, then what do you think we should do? If you have a good idea, I'm fine with it. Lin Feng said, I'll stick to the idea from before. You attack from the front, and when the battle reaches its climax, I'll ambush the three of them. As long as I can kill one of them, the remaining two will be easy to deal with. The Saint Devil Emperor's expression turned gloomy. What if you ambush me? Lin Feng had indeed planned to find an opportunity to attack the Holy Demon Emperor by surprise. However, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't say it aloud. He said, why would I ambush you? We're allies. The Saint Devil Emperor couldn't help but sneer at Lin Feng's words. He didn't believe Lin Feng's words at all. Lin Feng said, there are arrays everywhere here. You control the arrays here. If I ambush you, I refuse to believe that you won't notice it. Of course I'll notice it, the Saint Devil Emperor said indifferently. Lin Feng cursed. F***CK. Since you can sense it, what are you worried about? Could it be that your guts have returned to your mother's womb after reincarnating? The corner of the Saint Devil Emperor's mouth twitched. Lin Feng actually dared to mock him like this. The Saint Devil Emperor wanted nothing more than to slap Lin Feng to death. Lin Feng's mouth was simply too sharp. The Saint Devil Emperor wasn't worried about Lin Feng ambushing him. The reason he hadn't agreed to the plan was because he wanted to see Lin Feng and the 3 experts of the Dao Saint Palace kill each other. After that, he would make his move and wipe out Lin Feng and the 3 experts of the Dao Saint Palace. However, it seemed that his wish was going to be dashed. After all, Lin Feng didn't agree to his suggestion at all. All right, we'll do as you say, the Saint Devil Emperor said with a gloomy expression. Chapter 42, 98. Lin Feng smiled and said, Then I wish you all the best. I'll hide behind them while you deal with them quickly. Don't waste too much time. Don't worry. I'll do it as soon as possible, the Saint Devil Emperor said impatiently. Lin Feng then disappeared. Damn it, this kid is too cunning. It seems like my wish to deal with him is going to fail. But it doesn't matter. I'll deal with the 3 experts of the Dao Saint Palace first. Then I'll think of a way to deal with this kid. The Saint Devil Emperor couldn't help but think. Although he really wanted to kill Lin Feng, he knew that now wasn't the best time to do so. The Saint Devil Emperor began to activate the Grand Array. The densely packed Grand Arrays in the surroundings were activated, and those Grand Arrays emitted terrifying fluctuations. Be careful! The Saint Devil Emperor is about to activate the large array, Wu Yazi said in a low voice. The 3 of them quickly took out their defensive treasures. Wu Yazi's was a 5 elements treasure cover. It emitted a 5 elements divine light that protected Wu Yazi. Xia Yuanxiang took out an umbrella-like treasure. It opened and floated in front of Xia Yuanxiang. Billions of rays of divine light surged out and protected Xia Yuanxiang. The white Yama held a shield in his hand. The shield was covered with runes. Countless runes flew out of the shield and circled around the white Yama. That shield also seemed to be a powerful defensive magic treasure. Rumble. At that moment, a series of loud noises rang out. Following that, all kinds of attacks covered the sky and covered the earth as they flew toward the 3 experts, although many of the large arrays here had already been destroyed. Some of the large arrays that were left behind were still very powerful. All kinds of attacks gathered together to form a terrifying destructive force. However, the weapons of the 3 experts were also very powerful. Therefore, when all kinds of powerful attacks were sent towards them, they were all blocked by the defensive weapons of the 3 experts. Kik. The Saint Devil Emperor laughed. The saintly Devil Emperor let out a sinister laugh. Do the 3 of you think you can escape the fate of death by relying on defensive magic treasures? Let me tell you, you're all going to die today. No one in the world can save you. Where's our other companion? Wu Yazi asked in a deep voice. The Saint Devil Emperor sneered. Dead. He's already dead. I devoured him. That brat's flesh and blood is simply too delicious. But now is not the time for you to worry about that brat. You should worry about your own life. As soon as the Shengma Emperor finished speaking, an even more powerful attack burst forth. In addition to the attacks of the various large arrays, the Saint Devil Emperor also unleashed powerful divine abilities. Powerful divine abilities bombarded the 3 powerhouses. Kacha. Under the Holy Devil Emperor's continuous attacks, the defensive system formed by the 3 experts' magic treasures began to crack. Although he had already expected this to happen. However, when they truly saw this scene, the faces of the three experts were still incomparably ugly. We can't just sit here and wait for death. He must take the initiative to attack. If the Holy Devil Emperor had the absolute advantage, at that time, we'll be forced to retreat again and again. In the end, he will definitely die at the hands of the Holy Devil Emperor. Wu Yazi said in a deep voice. Xia Yuanxiang and Bai Yendi naturally agreed with Wu Yazi's words. Bring out the immortal slaying puppet, Xia Yuanxiang said through gritted teeth. This time, they were extremely well prepared. They had brought along a supreme treasure, like the immortal slaying puppet. The immortal slaying puppet was very powerful, but activating it would consume a large amount of blood essence. Moreover, the immortal slaying puppet was incomparably precious. Once activated, it would be destroyed, and its value would be completely gone. Therefore, the three of them did not want to use the immortal slaying puppet unless they had no other choice. However, now that Lin Feng had died, the three of them were in a precarious situation. They could not care less about that now. All right, let's activate the immortal slaying puppet to deal with that guy, Bai Yendi said. Bai Yendi agreed when he saw Xia Yuanxiang. Wu Yazi could not refuse. Therefore, Wu Yazi waved his hand. The immortal slaying puppet flew out. Ignite my blood essence to strengthen the puppet. Immortal slaying puppet, quickly awaken. The three of them began to ignite their blood essence. The energy formed by the ignition of their blood essence was all injected into the immortal slaying puppet. The runes on the immortal slaying puppet immediately came to life. The runes exuded extremely powerful energy waves. They could feel the energy waves emanating from the runes. Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi's faces lit up with joy. The immortal slaying puppet flashed and turned into a white-robed cultivator. The white-robed cultivator shouted. He leaped up and charged outside. In the blink of an eye, the white-robed cultivator turned into a beam of white immortal light. The white immortal light tore apart the great formations one by one. What was even more shocking was that the great formations that were torn apart actually repaired themselves on their own. It was extremely strange. However, the immortal slaying puppet had already arrived in front of the Shengma Emperor and slashed at him. The Shengma Emperor summoned a devil mountain to suppress the immortal light. However, the immortal light was too powerful. It shattered the devil mountain and rushed to the front of the Shengma Emperor, piercing through the Shengma Emperor's chest. However, the Shengma Emperor didn't die. He turned around and punched the immortal light that had pierced through his body. The immortal light shattered and turned into the immortal slaying puppet. You deserve to die. You deserve to die. I'll take your lives. The Shengma Emperor roared furiously. He frantically activated the great formations and attacked the three experts with various divine abilities. The three experts' faces changed. They were in danger if the immortal slaying puppet didn't kill the Shengma Emperor. The three experts only lasted an hour against the Shengma Emperor's crazy attacks before they were sent flying. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and their faces were pale. The Shengma Emperor was about to kill the three experts when Lin Feng silently appeared behind him. He punched at the Shengma Emperor. The Shengma Emperor was shocked. He turned around and punched at Lin Feng. The two sides collided. The Shengma Emperor's body rapidly aged. Lin Feng used the divine ability billions of years. It was a supreme divine ability recorded in the first part of the Great Reincarnation Art. It made people age rapidly and their battle prowess drop. Lin Feng's sneak attack was successful. He waved his hand, and a great formation separated the three experts of the Dao Saint Palace from him and the Shengma Emperor. Lin Feng still needed the 3 experts of the Dao Saint Palace to enter the Dao Saint Palace. Therefore, he couldn't expose the fact that he had taken the Shengma Emperor for himself. If the 3 experts knew about it, Lin Feng's plan to sneak into the Dao Saint Palace and rob the Dao Source Immortal Palace would fail. Chapter 42:99. He looked at his rapidly aging body and felt his strength rapidly fading away. The Saint Devil Emperor's killing intent sword. He had indeed been on guard against Lin Feng's sneak attack. However, he hadn't expected Lin Feng to succeed. He hadn't even noticed Lin Feng's sneak attack. How? How were you able to sneak up behind me without making a sound? The Saint Devil Emperor glared furiously at Lin Feng. Lin Feng calmly said, "Because I silently destroyed the array behind you. You acted like you didn't know anything about arrays, but it turns out that you were just plotting against me." The Saint Devil Emperor said coldly. Lin Feng shrugged and said, "That's right. Weren't you plotting against me as well? It's just that I made my move first. Brat, do you think you can suppress me like this? You're gravely mistaken." The Saint Devil Emperor changed his hand seals repeatedly, trying to control the array to suppress Lin Feng. When the array completely suppressed Lin Feng, he would take out the immortal suppressing Inkuan cauldron to deal with Lin Feng. The Saint Devil Emperor was extremely confident in himself. Even if his combat strength fell, he believed that he could defeat Lin Feng. The Saint Devil Emperor had plotted against Lin Feng because he wanted to use the simplest method to defeat Lin Feng. However, the Saint Devil Emperor no longer thought that way. Now, he only wanted to kill Lin Feng. Even if he had to pay a heavy price, he wouldn't hesitate to do so. It could be said that the Saint Devil Emperor had gone mad after being toyed with by Lin Feng. The main reason was that he was angry. Once a person became angry, they would do something regardless of the consequences. The Saint Devil Emperor was currently in such a situation. However, the corners of the Saint Devil Emperor's mouth twitched violently. He realized that he had lost control of the array. Lin Feng said, "The array here is really complicated. I've always wanted to take control of the array, but I've tried many times to no avail. Although I can't take away the control of the formation here, I can make it so that you can't control it either. Even if I don't control the formation, it won't be a problem to kill you." The Saint Devil Emperor's eyes flashed with killing intent as he rushed towards Lin Feng. The immortal suppression cauldron vibrated and released a terrifying aura. Even if the Holy Demon Emperor didn't use the Grand Array, even if his combat strength had declined to the extreme, he was still incomparably terrifying. Lin Feng was very clear about this. Hence, Lin Feng didn't hold back in the slightest in the face of the Holy Devil Emperor's attack. He summoned the primordial ancestral insect, Emperor Archaic, great, desolate demon-refining insects, and celestial devouring insects. Bibi and Little Black were also summoned. Lin Feng had named the mysterious little beast that followed Bibi Little Black. Although Little Black didn't like the name, its resistance was useless. In the end, it had no choice but to accept the name Little Black. Bibi and Little Black were still young. However, their combat strength was extremely heaven-defying. Bibi was an expert in the use of space. Little Black's ability was also extremely terrifying. Little Black was an expert in the use of the Tao of Death. Bibi waved its little claws. Suddenly, the void around the Saint Devil Emperor turned into layers of space, trapping the Saint Devil Emperor. Little Black waved its claws, and beams of death light flew towards the Saint Devil Emperor. Emperor Archaic flapped his wings. The power of destruction bombarded the Saint Devil Emperor. At the same time, the primordial ancestral insect spat out a dense number of threads, which all wrapped around the Saint Devil Emperor. The great desolate demon-refining insects and celestial devouring insects swarmed towards the Saint Devil Emperor. Lin Feng's dozen or so powerful treasures also bombarded the Saint Devil Emperor. F***CK. The Saint Devil Emperor couldn't help but curse when he saw the situation in front of him. He was very confident in himself. He believed that he could kill Lin Feng. In order to kill Lin Feng, the Saint Devil Emperor had even accepted the possibility of being seriously injured. However, Lin Feng had suddenly summoned so many helpers. In an instant, the gap between the two sides had widened. The most important thing was that the helpers Lin Feng had summoned were extremely strong. At this moment, the Holy Devil Emperor even had the urge to curse. The Saint Devil Emperor gnashed his teeth. He wanted nothing more than to tear Lin Feng to shreds. However, the Saint Devil Emperor wasn't someone who overestimated his own strength. In fact, he was extremely cautious. Therefore, the Saint Devil Emperor wanted to escape as soon as possible. If he continued to fight, it would be extremely disadvantageous for him. However, the Saint Devil Emperor was no longer in a situation where he could escape if he wanted to. Lin Feng had completely locked onto the Saint Devil Emperor and blocked his escape route. The Saint Devil Emperor had no choice but to defend himself against Lin Feng and his helpers. After a fierce battle, the Holy Demon Emperor had suffered severe injuries. Lin Feng took out the Gourd of Fortune. He wanted to use it to devour the Saint Devil Emperor. At this moment, the heaven-devouring gourd was trying to devour the Saint Devil Emperor's immortal suppression cauldron. The heaven and earth gourd was trying to devour the Saint Devil Emperor's true body. Brat, I know countless secrets. As long as you spare my life, I can tell you all of them. I even have many treasures hidden in a secret place. Whatever you want, I can give you, shouted the Holy Demon Emperor. He wanted to negotiate with Lin Feng, but on the inside, he was furious. Little boy, wait and see. If I manage to get out of here, I'll recover and I'll kill you. Not only will I kill you, but I'll kill your friends, your friends, your friends, your family, everyone who's related to you. I'll kill you. Lin Feng didn't know what the Saint Devil Emperor was thinking. However, no matter what, Lin Feng wouldn't let him go. He didn't care about the Saint Devil Emperor at all. Instead, he urged the treasure to devour the Saint Devil Emperor. No, the Saint Devil Emperor could no longer resist the Gourd of Fortune's devouring. He quickly flew toward the Gourd of Fortune, screaming in fear. However, it was to no avail. In the end, the Saint Devil Emperor was devoured by the Gourd of Fortune, and the heaven and earth immortal suppressing cauldron was devoured by the heaven-devouring jar. Lin Feng put away his treasures and removed the formation. Then he flew toward Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and the White Yendi. The three of them were severely injured. The Saint Devil Emperor had told them that Lin Feng was dead, but they had believed him. The three of them were convinced. They had seen Lin Feng fight against the Holy Demon Emperor, and now they knew Lin Feng wasn't dead. Seeing Lin Feng fly over, Wu Yazi asked, Taoist Lin, where's the Saint Devil Emperor? Chapter 4300. Xia Yuanxiang and the White Yendi also looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was fine, but the Saint Devil Emperor was nowhere to be seen. They were also very concerned about the Saint Devil Emperor's whereabouts. Said Lin Feng, the Holy Demon Emperor was injured by the celestial lights. I attacked him by surprise and injured him even more. Initially, I wanted to kill him, but who would have thought he would be able to escape? Even if he's injured, he's still extremely terrifying. He's too difficult to deal with. He escaped. Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and the White Yendi looked at each other. Their first reaction was that Lin Feng was lying. They thought that the Saint Devil Emperor might have been killed by Lin Feng. It was just that Lin Feng wanted to take it all for himself. However, When they thought of the Saint Devil Emperor's terrifying strength, they dismissed that thought. The Saint Devil Emperor was injured by the immortal light formed by the immortal slaying puppet, but he still had the strength to heavily injure them. Although Lin Feng was very strong, the three experts believed that Lin Feng wouldn't have any chance of winning against any of them, let alone the Saint Devil Emperor. For a terrifying existence like the Saint Devil Emperor, the final counterattack before death was the most frightening. And now, Lin Feng wasn't injured at all. Even if Lin Feng had 3 heads and 6 arms, he wouldn't be able to kill the Saint Devil Emperor so easily. Therefore, after the 3 experts thought about it, they felt that Lin Feng wasn't lying. The Saint Devil Emperor was injured before, so he could have escaped. Now that the Saint Devil Emperor is heavily injured, we can't let him escape. If he escapes, we might not have another chance to kill him in the future. The White Yendi's eyes were filled with killing intent. He was determined to kill the Saint Devil Emperor. Xia Yuanxiang nodded and said, "Send out the order now and have our men search for the whereabouts of the Saint Devil Emperor. Hopefully, we can find his hiding place." Wu Yazi said, "The Saint Devil Emperor is seriously injured this time, so he will definitely be more cautious. I guess that it won't be easy to find him. However, everything is possible with effort. I will now issue a search order for everyone to search for the whereabouts of the Holy Devil Emperor." As soon as he finished speaking, Wu Yazi took out a jade token and inserted some runes into it. The runes contained his orders. Countless cultivators in the blood refinement great world were searching for the whereabouts of the Sage Devil Emperor. Lin Yunsong planned to leave the blood refinement great world because he couldn't find the cultivator from the Dao Saint Palace who had killed his son and daughter. Therefore, Lin Yunsong planned to sneak into the Dao Saint Palace to find him. However, the Starry Sky world had already been sealed. Lin Yunsong was quickly discovered by the people of the Dao Saint Palace. A large number of Dao Saint Palace cultivators began to besiege Lin Yunsong. Lin Yunsong was strong enough to escape the encirclement of the Dao Saint Palace cultivators, but there were too many of them. Therefore, there were people following Lin Yunsong in the dark. It was impossible for Lin Yunsong to find everyone hiding in the dark and kill them. That was not realistic. It was impossible to find all of them. The experts from the Devil World who had received the news arrived with Diju. These people surrounded Lin Yunsong and began to besiege him. "Lin Yunsong, you won't be able to escape. If you know what's good for you, quickly surrender and hand over that thing. That way, you can die a quick death. Otherwise, after we capture you, we'll let you have a taste of living a life worse than death," the leading old man from the Devil World said sinisterly, his eyes flashing with killing intent. This time, Lin Yunsong was surrounded. In the eyes of these people, it was impossible for Lin Yunsong to escape. Lin Yunsong's expression was extremely gloomy. Naturally, he would not surrender. He tried to break out of the encirclement again and again, but he failed every time. Lin Yunsong's injuries were getting worse. It was especially so for the Devil World's old man and Diju. Their cultivation bases were too strong. Lin Yunsong was in the worst situation when facing these two people. Uft! Suddenly, a tearing sound was heard. Diju found an opportunity. The Fangtian halberd in his hand directly pierced Lin Yunsong's chest. Ah! Lin Yunsong let out a shrill scream. The Devil World's old man crippled Lin Yunsong's dantian with a palm strike. Lin Yunsong became a cripple. The Devil World's old man searched Lin Yunsong's body and found a storage ring. However, there was no Devil Master token in the storage ring. "Where's the Devil Master token? Where did you put it?" The Devil World's old man asked Lin Yunsong with a gloomy expression. "Is the Devil Master token not in there?" Diju asked with a frown. "No," the Devil World's old man said. "Diju, Also check the storage ring. Indeed, there was no Devil Master token. You'll never get the Devil Master token. Lin Yun-song said coldly. Is that so? We have 1,000 ways to make you talk and bring him back to the Dao Saint Palace. At that time, we don't have to be afraid that he won't talk. Di Ju said with a sneer. Di Ju had countless ways to torture people. Many of his methods were enough to make people break down. Therefore, Di Ju was confident. He was confident that he could make Lin Yun-song talk. The group of people brought Lin Yun-song away. Lin Feng and the 3 experts continued to stay in the blood refinement great world for 10 days. He still wanted to borrow their strength to enter the Dao Saint Palace. Therefore, Lin Feng did not bother with them. They searched for 10 days. They still could not find the whereabouts of the Saint Devil Emperor. The 3 experts' expressions were grave. Wu Yazi said in a deep voice, It seems like the Saint Devil Emperor has escaped. Xia Yuanxiang and Baiyeni nodded as well. Lin Feng said, That's a pity. If we can find him, we can definitely kill him. Yes, it's a pity. However, there's nothing we can do about it. Let the people continue to search for the Saint Devil Emperor. We should return to the Dao Saint Palace. The patriarch will come out of seclusion soon. We have to wait for him at the side. Wu Yazi said. Lin Feng guessed that the patriarch Wu Yazi mentioned was most likely the human immortal expert from the Dao Saint Palace. That was a terrifying existence. Xia Yuanxiang said. Also, we have to recommend fellow Taoist Lin to the sect. If fellow Taoist Lin joins the Dao Saint Palace, our strength will definitely increase greatly. Baiyeni said with a smile. Yes, we're looking forward to fellow Taoist Lin joining us. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, Haha, I'm also looking forward to joining the Dao Saint Palace. I'll have to trouble the 3 of you then. Fellow Taoist Lin, you're welcome. The 3 of them cupped their fists and said. Then, the 3 of them left the blood refinement great world. 2 months later, they arrived at the Dao Saint Great World. This was the headquarters of the Dao Saint Palace. Chapter 43:01. Dao Saint Great World. People were coming and going. It was bustling. This was one of the places one had to pass to get to the Undying Realm, so countless cultivators would gather here. The reason why the Dao Saint Great World was so prosperous was because the Dao Saint Great World's location was too good. Cultivators from all over the world gathered here, so all kinds of precious resources and magic treasures could be found here. Therefore, Dao Saint Great World had always been in a relatively prosperous state for cultivation, especially for Dao Saint Palace. Dao Saint Great World was controlled by Dao Saint Palace, and all kinds of resources would eventually flow to Dao Saint Palace. Therefore, Dao Saint Palace had many experts. Other than the Undying Realm, it was not easy to compete with Dao Saint Palace in terms of the number of experts. Of course, the most terrifying thing about Dao Saint Palace was not the number of experts, but the existence of the Heavenly Way Infinite diagram. After all, this was an ancient weapon. The power of this ancient weapon was unimaginable. Ancient weapons were rare in the world to begin with. Some ancient weapons could kill immortals and gods as easily as taking something out of their pockets. Dao Saint Palace had an ancient weapon which was its most powerful foundation. And this foundation, it was enough to make the major forces in the Undying Realm fearful. Lin Feng, Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Baiyeni quickly flew towards Dao Saint Great World. The 4 of them were extremely fast. Along the way, Wu Yazi and the other 2 kept introducing Lin Feng to Dao Saint Great World and Dao Saint Palace. Wu Yazi said, Dao Saint Great World has a total of 108 main cities. As for the smaller cities, there are even more. There are simply too many to count. Dao Saint Palace is located in the depths of Dao Saint Great World. It is the sacred place of Dao Saint Great World, and ordinary people are not allowed to go there. Our Dao Saint Palace now has more than 700 big and small palaces. There is one peak human immortal expert, one mid-human immortal, and one beginner human immortal cultivator, and 17 individual immortal cultivators. Of course, the most important thing is that there is an ancient weapon in Dao Saint Palace. It is a great killing weapon that intimidates the world. With such a huge Dao Saint Palace, it must not be peaceful between them, right? Lin Feng said. Lin Feng believed that Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi were allies since they were able to come together. Therefore, Lin Feng did not avoid discussing these matters in front of them. Wu Yazi said, "The older generation is no longer that passionate about power. It's mainly the middle generation and the younger generation who are still passionate about power." Lin Feng agreed with Wu Yazi's words. People like Wu Yazi were all experts who had walked out of the divine stones. What had they not seen in their lives? Right now, Wu Yazi and the others were probably not interested in fighting for power. They were only interested in increasing their cultivation. However, the cultivators of the younger generation were still very interested in taking control of the Dao Saint Palace. Once he took control of the Dao Saint Palace, he would be above everyone else. Who would not like that feeling? Even Lin Feng liked the feeling of being in control. Men were all interested in power and beautiful women. Lin Feng knew that he hadn't reached the stage where he could see through life and ignore power. "I heard that Di Jue is very powerful and is known as the Crown Prince. Is he the future successor of the Dao Saint Palace?" Lin Feng asked as his heart jolted. He had seen Di Jue's attack before. It was indeed terrifying and shocking. Even Lin Feng did not have the confidence to fight against someone like Di Jue. After Di Jue had broken through to the bodiless celestial stage, he had become even more terrifying. He was like an ancient celestial or a conferred god. Everyone was in awe of him. Wu Yazi said, "Di Jue is indeed very powerful. He's one of the top figures among the younger generation. As the future successor of the Dao Saint Palace Master, it's only natural that he's the most popular. After he had broken through to the bodiless celestial stage some time ago, he's even more popular now. However, no one knows how things will develop in the future, because no one can foresee the future. Di Jue also has a few competitors. The first competitor is called Shengwan Bingyun. It's said that this woman's ancestor has a deep relationship with the Dao Saint Palace. He's very talented and has a heaven-defying cultivation base. He's only a step away from breaking through to the bodiless celestial stage at such a young age. He also has many supporters in the Dao Saint Palace. The second competitor is called Muyun Yi. He's also very talented and powerful. Perhaps he'll break through to the bodiless celestial stage soon. The third competitor is called Murong Xangnan. He's also a top genius who's also at the subimmortal stage. When they were at the subimmortal stage, they were already able to challenge and deal with experts at the bodiless celestial stage. Therefore, you can imagine how powerful they'll be once they break through to the bodiless celestial stage. Now that Di Jue has broken through to the bodiless celestial stage first, it's up to the other three to see if they can break through to the bodiless celestial stage as well. The competition between them will be even more intense. It was obvious that the four of them had a strong background in their respective sections. That was why they were qualified to be the successor. If they did not have a strong background, they would not be qualified to be the successor, even if they were very talented and powerful. "Who do you three support?" Lin Feng asked with a smile. Xia Yuanxiang said, "We're in the middle. We're not willing to participate in the competition. Stay out of it. I'm afraid that's difficult to achieve. Lin Feng said, "We'll take it one step at a time. It's not too late to make a decision when the situation is clear." Bai Yendi said. Lin Feng could not help but nod. A month later, they arrived at the Dao Saint Palace. Looking from afar, the clouds were rolling in the void. Within the clouds, there were countless jade palaces floating in the air. The Immortal Palace, that must be the Dao Saint Palace. Countless cultivators were entering and exiting the palace. The Dao Saint Palace was extremely huge. There were about 40 to 50 million disciples in total. The deacons, elders, and others added up to about 5 to 6 million people. There was a huge stone door in front of the Dao Saint Palace. Below the stone door was a platform paved with white jade. The surroundings were filled with restrictions. The only way in and out of the Dao Saint Palace was through the stone door. Lin Feng looked at the stone door. He could not help but think of the legendary Southern Heavenly Gate. It was said that it was heavily guarded and was the gateway to the Heavenly Court. It seemed like the stone door of the Dao Saint Palace was an imitation of the Heavenly Court's Southern Heavenly Gate. When they got closer, Lin Feng noticed a huge plaque above the stone door. There were 3 words written on the plaque: Northern Heavenly Gate. The 3 words were surrounded by holy light. It was only 1 word different from the Southern Heavenly Gate, which surprised Lin Feng. Chapter 43:02. Lin Feng remembered that the founder of the Dao Saint Palace and the 3rd Heavenly Emperor had fought for the Heavenly Emperor's throne when they were young, although they had failed in a baffling way, but they were probably still unwilling to accept it. So the entrance to the Heavenly Court was the Southern Heavenly Gate, while his entrance was the Northern Heavenly Gate. Lin Feng felt that there was really such a possibility. Of course, all of this was just Lin Feng's guess. Lin Feng could not confirm this point. After he, Wu Yazi, and the others ascended the Northern Heavenly Gate, the guards and cultivators entering and exiting the Northern Heavenly Gate all bowed to Wu Yazi and the other 2. The 3 of them had extremely high statuses in the Dao Saint Palace. Wu Yazi said, "Fellow Taoist Lin, please come in. I will bring you to experience the splendor of the Dao Saint Palace." "Thank you, fellow Taoist Wu." Lin Feng cupped his fists and said. Accompanied by Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and White Yama, Lin Feng entered the Dao Saint Palace. After they left, everyone could not help but exclaim in surprise. Lin Feng was so young, but he was accompanied by 3 great loose immortal patriarchs into the Dao Saint Palace. Who was Lin Feng? Everyone was puzzled and extremely curious about Lin Feng's identity. They wanted to know Lin Feng's identity, but after those cultivators conversed for a while, no one recognized Lin Feng. In the Dao Saint Palace, pavilions and immortal palaces were all floating in the clouds. It was truly an immortal scene. This required extremely powerful magic power to create such a scene. Clearly, all of this was built by the ancestors of the Dao Saint Palace after many years. Wu Yazi and the other 2 brought Lin Feng to the Sacred Immortal Academy. This name was grand and majestic, but in reality, this place was just a courtyard for guests to rest. There were many flower beds and ponds inside. All kinds of rare spiritual flowers were planted in the flower beds. In the ponds, there were lotus flowers, lotus leaves, and some water plants. Lin Feng was the only guest that stayed in Sacred Immortal Academy. Ordinary guests didn't have the qualifications to stay in Sacred Immortal Academy. Only those who had surpassed the Great Emperor realm were qualified to stay here, and Lin Feng was clearly qualified. Fellow Taoist Lin, you can stay here for now. If you need anything, you can ask the servants below. Now, we'll report your matter to the higher-ups. Soon, you'll be tested. If you pass, you'll be able to join Dao Saint Palace. With fellow Taoist Lin's strength, Your status will definitely be extremely high after joining the Dao Saint Palace. Xia Yuanxiang said. All right, thank you for your trouble. Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, Fellow Taoist Lin, you're too kind. We'll take our leave now. The three of them said in unison. He also cupped his fists. Then they left together. Lin Feng returned to his courtyard and closed the door. There was a pool in the courtyard for bathing. Lin Feng took off his clothes and jumped into the pool. He closed his eyes and pondered. After arriving at Dao Saint Palace, Lin Feng realized that this Dao Saint Palace was even more extraordinary than he had imagined. It was even more powerful. The Dao Source Immortal Palace was obviously the most important palace in Dao Saint Palace. It would be extremely difficult to sneak in and rob it. This matter needed to be considered at length. He needed to find a suitable opportunity to take action. He definitely couldn't take action under normal circumstances. It was too dangerous. Lin Feng was naturally very clear about this point. After bathing, he changed into a clean set of clothes. Not long after, someone came to visit Lin Feng. It was none other than the sisters Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue. After seeing the sisters, Lin Feng said with a smile, It's been a while since we last met. The two fairies are still as beautiful as ever. The two said, We came without notice. Please forgive us, young master. Said Lin Feng, You two celestial beings, you're very welcome. Xia Rushuan said, I believe that young master will be going through the assessment in a few days. Young master, there are some things you need to pay attention to during the assessment. Who will be assessing me? What do I need to pay attention to? Lin Feng asked curiously. With young master's strength, I believe that the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram will be assessing you. Xia Rushuan said. Hearing this, Lin Feng was shocked. The Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram will be assessing him? The Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram was an ancient weapon. It was an extremely terrifying existence. He didn't know how powerful it was. If the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram were to assess him, Lin Feng felt that there might be some problems. At this time, Xia Rushuan continued, during the assessment, young master must not have any thoughts that are detrimental to the Dao Saint Palace. It will be bad if the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram senses it. The Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram isn't asleep, Lin Feng asked calmly. It's asleep most of the time, but it will occasionally wake up. Even if it's asleep, the sect's old ancestor can still awaken it. Xia Ruyue said, Is the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram going to search my soul? Lin Feng asked. Xia Rushuan said, That's not the case. It should only be peeking into your inner world. There's also a saying that it's exploring the soul world. Oh, is that so? Lin Feng couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. Xia Rushuan's words weren't good news for Lin Feng. Even if it wasn't a soul search, it was extremely disadvantageous for the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram to peek into his inner world or soul world. If the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagram were to discover his true purpose of infiltrating the Dao Saint Palace, then he was definitely done for. Lin Gongzi, you don't have to worry. When the time comes, just don't let your imagination run wild. Xia Ruyue said. Lin Feng smiled bitterly in his heart. Xia Ruyue's words were simple, but the actual situation wasn't that simple. If he was sincere about joining the Dao Saint Palace, he wouldn't be afraid of the Heavenly Path Infinite Diagrams investigation. The key was that he wasn't sincere about joining the Dao Saint Palace. Moreover, the idea of robbing the Dao Source Immortal Palace had already been deeply imprinted in his soul. When the time came, even if he didn't think about it, his soul world would still be obsessed with it. Lin Feng naturally didn't express his worries in front of Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue. He chatted with the two sisters for a while longer. Xia Rushuan and Xia Riyue then left. Demon Lord, it seems like the Heavenly Path Infinite diagram has some terrifying means to search a cultivator's inner world or soul. Is there any way to prevent the Heavenly Path Infinite diagram from seeing my true thoughts, or some of my true thoughts in my soul world? Lin Feng transmitted his voice to the Demon Lord. Yao Jun said, I know a great soul transfer technique. You can use the great soul transfer technique to exchange your soul with the soul of your external incarnation. The soul will produce consciousness, and the consciousness will produce fluctuations in the inner world. Therefore, exploring the inner world is ultimately also exploring your soul, and exploring the soul world is ultimately also exploring your soul. Chapter 43:03. The soul transfer technique was not particularly difficult for Lin Feng to cultivate. The Demon Lord told Lin Feng the cultivation method of the soul transfer technique. Lin Feng used 6 hours to successfully cultivate the soul transfer technique. Of course, Lin Feng did not use the soul transfer technique now. It would not be too late to use it during the assessment. In the next 2 days, Xia Rushuan and Xia Riyue often came to Lin Feng's place. Sometimes they would take Lin Feng to stroll around some of the gardens in the Dao Saint Palace. Lin Feng had not officially joined the Dao Saint Palace, so there were many places that Lin Feng could not go by himself. The rules of the Dao Saint Palace were extremely strict. Finally, on this day, Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi came to Lin Feng's place. Wu Yazi said with a smile, Taoist Lin, we have already communicated with the Heaven's Infinite diagram. Let's go take a look at it now. Lin Feng knew that the assessment of the Dao Saint Palace was about to begin. Lin Feng nodded and said, No problem. Let's go now. Under the guidance of the three, Lin Feng went to accept the assessment. On the way, Lin Feng used the soul transfer technique. He switched his soul with the soul of his external incarnation. The reason why he used the soul transfer technique in advance was because Lin Feng did not know what powerful techniques the Heaven's Infinite diagram had. Therefore, Lin Feng was worried that the Heaven's Infinite diagram would discover him if he used the soul transfer technique under the gaze of the Heaven's Infinite diagram. Therefore, he used the soul transfer technique in advance. Under the guidance of Wu Yazi and the other two, Lin Feng came to an ancient hall. It was a starry hall. Above the hall, there seemed to be a boundless starry world. Large stars rotated in the starry world. Wu Yazi said, Taoist Lin, you don't have to do anything. You just have to stand here for a while. Lin Feng nodded. He stood in place and released his spirit force. Anyone could check on Lin Feng's situation. The Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram had yet to appear, so Lin Feng didn't know if the Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram's true body was in this hall. Of course, it was also possible that only a portion of his consciousness had descended upon the hall. But no matter what the situation was, Lin Feng believed that the Heavenly Way Infinite diagram was spying on his soul at this very moment. It wanted to find the reason why he joined the Dao Saint Palace from the memories in his soul. However, Lin Feng was now full of confidence. A quarter of an hour later, Wu Yazi seemed to have received some instructions. He smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Lin, let's rest in the living room for the time being. Please lead the way, fellow Taoist Wu. Lin Feng said. Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi led Lin Feng away to rest. After they left, a cultivator walked out from the back of the hall. This cultivator was dressed in a Confucian robe. He looked like he had read a lot of books and poems, like a great scholar who had achieved the Tao. This cultivator was called Kong Mingdao. He was one of the 3 human immortals of the Dao Saint Palace. Kong Mingdao cupped his fists at the starry sky world that was floating above the hall and asked, "My lord, is there a problem with that cultivator called Lin Feng?" An ancient voice that had experienced the vicissitudes of life resonated from the starry sky world. "This person is not simple. First of all, his cultivation level isn't particularly high. However, his combat strength is extremely terrifying. His talent is even comparable to Di Jue's." Upon hearing this, Kong Mingdao could not help but be shocked. His talent was comparable to Di Jue's? This evaluation was simply too high. Currently, it was publicly acknowledged in the sect that Di Jue's talent was unparalleled. Although the other three heaven-defying prodigies were also incomparably monstrous, they seemed to be slightly inferior to Di Jue. Therefore, the Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram had said that Lin Feng's talent was comparable to Di Jue's. This made Kong Mingdao feel extremely incredulous. The Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram's voice continued to resound. "Secondly, this person has a lot of secrets. Originally, I could peek into his secrets, but I didn't do so. If I peek into some of his secrets, he should be able to find out. Everyone has their own secrets. For someone like him, his resistance is extremely strong. If I were to peek into his secrets, it would be counterproductive. Lastly, this person joined the Tao Saint Palace. It seems like he wants to borrow the power of the Tao Saint Palace to break through his cultivation base. His thoughts are rather simple, and his martial will is also very pure. He doesn't seem like an evil person." "Then, does he pass the examination?" Kong Mingdao asked. The Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram said, "Actually, I'm a little hesitant. For a peerless genius like him, who has a lot of secrets, it's best for the sect not to accept him. After all, who knows what will happen in the future? However, this person can be recruited. Since you don't want to recruit such a person, why did you change your mind?" Kong Mingdao asked. "This person is too monstrous. If we don't recruit him, he'll be recruited by other forces sooner or later. If they nurture him, he might become a threat to the Tao Saint Palace. Thus, it's better to restrict him to the Tao Saint Palace." The Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram said, "This fellow was truly sinister. If he really did as he wished and restricted Lin Feng to the Tao Saint Palace, it seemed like this fellow did not intend to nurture Lin Feng properly. Instead, he wanted to destroy Lin Feng. Luckily, Lin Feng didn't really want to join the Tao Saint Palace. If he truly joined the Tao Saint Palace, he would have entered the tiger's den." Swoosh! With a flash of light, a porcelain bottle flew out. "This is?" Kong Mingdao asked in surprise after receiving the bottle. "This is a newly refined Tao Source Immortal Pill. However, these Tao Source Immortal Pills are infused with goo poison. If we want to restrict a genius like him, we need to use some special methods. In the future, even if he wants to leave the Tao Saint Palace, he won't be able to do so." The Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram said with a smile. "My lord is wise," Kong Mingdao hurriedly said. "You can go and deal with the rest." The Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram said. "Yes, I'll go and deal with the rest now," Kong Mingdao said as he left the starry hall. "Interesting, interesting," Yi Fuqian murmured. After Kong Mingdao left, the Heavenly Tao Limitless diagram's voice echoed in the starry hall. But soon, the hall became quiet. Lin Feng, who was drinking tea in the living room, suddenly had a bad feeling. His blood was flowing faster and faster. Chapter 4304. Someone is plotting against me. Lin Feng's expression did not change, but his heart turned cold. He guessed. Someone was plotting against him. No one else. It should be the Heavenly Tao Everlasting diagram. However, Lin Feng sneered inwardly. The Heavenly Tao Everlasting diagram probably did not expect him to have sudden inspiration. right? That fellow probably did not expect him to have seen through its thoughts, right? Lin Feng asked without batting an eyelid. Was the hall we went to earlier the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram slumber? Of course not. Wu Yazi shook his head. The heavenly Tao everlasting diagram. The Starry Sky Hall is the hall where important figures are examined. The heavenly Tao limitless diagram only sent its divine sense into the Starry Sky Hall. The heavenly Tao everlasting diagram is slumbering in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. What? The heavenly Tao everlasting diagram is slumbering in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Lin Feng was shocked. Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and the White Yama Emperor were surprised by Lin Feng's shocked expression. Lin Feng had always been a calm person. Is there something wrong? Xia Yuanxiang asked. Lin Feng wanted to curse inwardly. His goal was the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Who would have thought that the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram was slumbering in the Tao Source Immortal Palace? This was going to be troublesome. If he wanted to enter the Tao Source Immortal Palace, he would have to alert the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram. Unless the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram left the Tao Source Immortal Palace. Of course, this was something he would have to consider in the future. For now, Lin Feng did not have to think about it. Lin Feng said, "Nothing, I'm just surprised. I thought the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram would be slumbering in the ancestral land. A powerful faction like the Tao Saint Palace would definitely have an ancestral land." Lin Feng's explanation was reasonable. White Yama Emperor said, "There are countless Tao Source immortal pills stored in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. These Tao Source immortal pills were refined using the Tao Source from the heavenly Tao limitless diagram. The Tao Source Immortal Palace is very important to our Tao Saint Palace. Such an important place naturally has to be guarded by a peak expert. So the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram is guarding the Tao Source Immortal Palace." I see. Lin Feng couldn't help but nod. At this moment, Kong Mingdao walked into the living room. After seeing this person, Wu Yazi and the others stood up. Lin Feng also stood up. "Milord." Wu Yazi and the others cupped their fists and bowed. "Don't be so courteous, everyone." Kong Mingdao smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Lin, Lord Kong Mingdao is one of the 3 human immortals of the Tao Saint Palace." Wu Yazi introduced. "Nice to meet you, nice to meet you." Lin Feng cupped his fists and said, "Ha ha ha, we will be a family in the future. Fellow Taoist Lin, there's no need to be so courteous." Kong Mingdao smiled and said, "Has fellow Taoist Lin passed the examination?" Xia Yuanxiang's eyes lit up as she said, "Yes, it has been approved." Kong Mingdao said with a smile. Lin Feng smiled. "It's my honor to be able to join the Tao Saint Palace." Kong Mingdao smiled and said, "How about this? The Tao Saint Palace's mission hall lacks a hall master, so why don't we have fellow Taoist Lin take over?" Lin Feng said, "Isn't it a little too sudden for me to take up such an important position as a newcomer? I'm sure there will be a lot of opinions from below, right? I think it's best if I don't take up any positions for now." Kong Mingdao said, "Fellow Taoist Lin, there's no need to worry with your cultivation. Even I feel that it's a waste for you to be the hall master of the mission hall. It's just that some of the other important halls have already been taken over, so I won't be able to assign you there. Fellow Taoist Lin, you will be in charge of the mission hall for now. When there's a better position in the future, I'll assign you there." "Then I'll respectfully accept," Lin Feng said. Kong Mingdao took out a storage ring and said, "Fellow Taoist Lin, there are some Tao Source immortal pills in a porcelain bottle inside. In addition, there are some divine ability manuals, magic treasures, and so on. These are all rewards for joining the sect. Apart from these, fellow Taoist Lin can also claim the sect's benefits at the beginning of every month. Lin Feng took the storage ring and said, "I'll keep that in mind. Fellow Taoist Lin, please go back and rest for now. Tomorrow, I'll personally bring fellow Taoist Lin to the mission hall to report." Kong Mingdao said, "Then I'll take my leave." Lin Feng cupped his fists and left. Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi did not leave because Kong Mingdao did not allow them to send Lin Feng back. Clearly, he had something else to tell them. "My lord, fellow Taoist Lin joined our sect mainly to raise his cultivation. He shouldn't be interested in these specific positions. Why did you assign him the position of Hall Master of the Mission Hall? The Mission Hall handles countless missions every day. It's the most arduous hall. Fellow Taoist Lin will be in charge of the Mission Hall, won't he? What if fellow Taoist Lin leaves in a fit of anger?" Xia Yuanxiang asked, puzzled. Kong Mingdao said, "Lord Heavenly Infinite Diagram said that this lad's talent is not inferior to Di Jue's. We need to restrain this lad." After hearing Kong Mingdao's words, Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi immediately understood the deeper meaning of Kong Mingdao's words. "It's fine as long as you know about this. However, don't say anything in front of Lin Feng. I know all of you have a good relationship with him, but Lord Heavenly Infinite Diagram is doing this for the sake of the sect. Moreover, Lord Heavenly Infinite Diagram has no intention of harming Lin Feng. The path to becoming a supreme being is not easy. This path is destined to be filled with corpses. It's better to withdraw from this path as soon as possible." Kong Mingdao said. "Yes." Wu Yazi, Xia Yuanxiang, and Bai Yendi replied. After returning to his residence, Lin Feng took out the items in his storage ring. He opened the storage ring and found 100 Tao Source Immortal Pills inside. These Tao Source Immortal Pills were refined using the Tao Source as the foundation and fused with Immortal Qi. Because it did not incorporate a large number of spiritual herbs, although it was called an immortal pill, it was still quite far from an immortal pill that could truly improve one's cultivation. However, this Tao Source Immortal Pill was quite powerful, and that was the Tao Source energy within the Tao Source Immortal Pill was very useful in improving the cultivator's cultivation. Moreover, there were countless Tao Source Immortal Pills stored in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. The lack of quality could be compensated with quantity. Therefore, as long as one could obtain a large number of Tao Source Immortal Pills, it would be very useful in raising one's cultivation base. Other than this bottle of Tao Source Immortal Pills, the other benefits of the sect were ordinary items. Lin Feng was not interested in them. Chapter 43:05. After swallowing the Tao Source Immortal Pill, Lin Feng circulated the immemorial dragonesque elephant art to refine the pill. The Tao Source Immortal Pill's medicinal energy was very pure, and Lin Feng absorbed all of it. Lin Feng found that after the medicinal energy of the Tao Source Immortal Pill entered his body, it merged with the magic energy stored in his body. The medicinal energy of the Tao Source Immortal Pill was refining Lin Feng's magic energy. When Lin Feng's magic energy was refined to a certain level, the transformation of his magic energy was completed. His magic power was the first to complete its transformation. As the saying goes, a slight move in one part will affect the whole body. After the transformation of his magic energy, many other parts of Lin Feng's body would also complete the transformation. In the end, Lin Feng would complete the breakthrough. In the following time, Lin Feng swallowed all the Tao Source Immortal Pills. After absorbing all of them, Lin Feng's magic energy had indeed become much purer. However, it was still far from reaching the level of transformation. "It's too little. He only gave me 100 Tao Source Immortal Pills. He's too stingy. Lin Feng could not help but feel speechless. At this moment, Lin Feng suddenly felt a fluctuation. It was the white jade toad that was emitting this fluctuation. Lin Feng was surprised. He did not know why the white jade toad was emitting such a violent fluctuation at this time. Lin Feng summoned the white jade toad. He opened his palm, and the white jade toad lay on Lin Feng's palm. Lin Feng asked, "Little guy, what happened?" "Croak, croak, croak." The white jade toad opened its mouth and croaked. At the same time, the white jade toad's divine will was transmitted into Lin Feng's mind. "You're saying that I've been poisoned." Lin Feng looked at the white jade toad in shock. "Croak, croak, croak." The white jade toad croaked again, confirming Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng's expression turned ugly. He was actually poisoned by the goo. Lin Feng asked himself if he had been very careful. The only possibility of being poisoned was the pill he had swallowed before. Could it be that there was a problem with those Tao Source Immortal pills? Is it because of the Tao Source Immortal pill? Lin Feng asked the white jade toad. "Croak, croak, croak." The white jade toad cried out and gave Lin Feng an affirmative answer. There was indeed a problem with the Tao Source Immortal pill. Lin Feng was speechless. Who would have thought that he would be set up by someone from the Tao Saint Palace? It must have been the Heaven Path Infinite diagram that set him up. For the time being, Lin Feng did not know if Wu Yazi and the others knew about this. However, Lin Feng was certain that Kong Mingdao definitely knew about this matter. Lin Feng carefully checked his body, but he didn't find any traces of goo poison. He didn't know what kind of goo poison the other party used to make it so terrifying. Lin Feng couldn't help but look grave and solemn. Since he couldn't find the goo poison, there was no need to detoxify it. Lin Feng looked at the white jade toad and asked, "Can you detoxify this goo poison for me?" "Croak, croak, croak." The white jade toad cried out again. Lin Feng's face lit up with joy. The white jade toad gave him an affirmative answer once again. "Hurry up and detoxify the goo poison in my body," Lin Feng said impatiently. The white jade toad opened its mouth and sucked. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt as if a formless energy was flying out of his body. The energy was absorbed by the white jade toad. In fact, all kinds of poisons were also a type of energy. However, it was very difficult for the human body to absorb them. However, the white jade toad could do it. Everything in the world had a mutual counterbalance. Heaven and earth were just that mysterious. After absorbing the goo poison in Lin Feng's body, the white jade toad became more energetic. Its aura was also much stronger than before. Fortunately, he had the white jade toad. Otherwise, he would have been schemed against by the infinite diagram of the heavenly Tao. At that time, he wouldn't even know how he died. Lin Feng sent the white jade toad back into the space-time continuum. Then he began to think. The infinite diagram of the heavenly Tao probably wanted to use the goo poison to control my body. However, now that the goo poison has been detoxified, he can no longer control my body. I wonder if he has already noticed that the goo poison in my body has been detoxified. If he does, then it'll be terrible. However, Lin Feng soon relaxed. He had some understanding of goo poison. Goo poison usually lay dormant in a cultivator's body. Once the goo poison was activated, the goo poison would explode. Then, the poison's power would erupt. During this period of dormancy, the cultivator would not be able to sense the specific situation of the poisoned person through the dormant poison. Only after the goo poison had been activated could the person who had planted the goo poison sense the specific situation of the victim through the goo poison. However, the goo poison in his body was still in the dormant stage. The goo poison needed a certain amount of time from the dormant stage to the mature stage, and then to the activated stage. The stronger the goo poison, the longer the time needed to control, the stronger the cultivator. Therefore, the goo poison in his body could not be activated in a short period of time. Therefore, during this period of time, the other party would not know that the goo poison in his body had been detoxified. Moreover, the infinite diagram of the heavenly Tao rarely woke up. Most of the time, he was in a deep sleep. After the goo poison was planted in him, there was an 80% chance that he would still be in a deep sleep. Therefore, he didn't have to worry too much about being discovered by the infinite diagram of the heavenly Tao. He didn't know when that fellow would wake up again. When he woke up, he wanted to control the goo poison to control him. At that time, the infinite diagram of the heavenly Tao would realize that the goo poison had been detoxified. Naturally, he wouldn't have the chance to control him. Thinking of this, Lin Feng's hanging heart finally relaxed a little. "Lin Gongzi, are you there?" A voice came from outside. It was very pleasant to hear. Lin Feng could tell that the owner of this voice should be Xia Ruyue. It was already night time. He didn't know why Xia Ruyue was here. "Yes," replied Lin Feng. Immediately after, he stood up and opened the door of the courtyard. As expected, the person outside was Xia Ruyue. The moon was bright. Xia Ruyue stood outside the courtyard, as beautiful as a fairy. After seeing Lin Feng, Xia Ruyue bowed to Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Fairy, you don't have to be so polite." "Aren't you going to invite me in?" Xia Ruyue said with a smile. "Fairy, please come in." Lin Feng invited Xia Ruyue into the courtyard. Xia Ruyue liked to come to his place when she had nothing to do. How could Lin Feng not know what Xia Ruyue was thinking? Of course, Lin Feng knew. An outstanding young talent like Lin Feng would always have many butterflies flying around him. Because of many things, Lin Feng had an extremely bad impression of the Tao Saint Palace. However, Lin Feng had a good impression of Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue. The two sisters' thoughts were relatively simple. Chapter 43:06. Lin Feng knew what Xia Ruyue was thinking, but Lin Feng wouldn't promise Xia Ruyue anything. At most, they would gather and chat like friends. They wouldn't have any intimate relationship, because Lin Feng planned to do something big in the future and then run away. By then, Lin Feng would become the enemy of the Tao Saint Palace. If he had an intimate relationship with Xia Ruyue and he ran away, she wouldn't have a good ending. Of course, by then, he would have to see how things would develop. People's feelings weren't easy to control. So if he really had feelings and had to face some things, he would just take Xia Ruyue with him. By then, he would take Xia Rushuan with him. Once they left the Tao Saint Palace's territory, the people of the Tao Saint Palace couldn't do anything to Lin Feng, Xia Rushuan, Xia Ruyue, and the rest. Of course, this was all in the future. Lin Feng wasn't sure what would happen in the future. Xia Ruyue stayed with Lin Feng for more than 2 hours. Lin Feng and Xia Ruyue had a good chat. Xia Ruyue told Lin Feng about some interesting things that happened in the past few years. The next day, Kong Mingdao arrived and brought Lin Feng to the Mission Palace. Among the 700-plus palaces in the Tao Saint Palace, some were for the disciples to cultivate and rest. Some were for the various departments to work. For a huge force like the Tao Saint Palace, each department had a clear division of labor. The entire Tao Saint Palace was like a huge machine that operated perfectly. The Mission Palace's daily task was to give out various missions and track the progress of the various missions. These missions were different, so the rewards were naturally different. The Mission Palace's palace master didn't have much authority. The ones with the most authority were the Disciplinary Palace, Achievement Palace, Inheritance Palace, Immortal Elixir Palace, and other palaces. They could obtain substantial benefits. The Mission Palace's palace master couldn't come into contact with substantial things. He was only in contact with various missions, so it was naturally difficult for him to obtain any benefits. Kong, Mingdao, and Lin Feng came to the Mission Palace together. There were about 3,000 people in the Mission Palace, from elders to disciples. These 3,000 people were responsible for the operation of the Mission Palace. Now, 3,000 people were gathered in the main hall. These people were waiting for the appointment ceremony of the new temple master. Everyone, on behalf of the Dao Saint Palace, I hereby announce the appointment of Lin Feng as the new hall master of the Mission Hall. I hope that everyone will work together in the future and do a good job in the Mission Hall. Kong Mingdao said loudly. Then Kong Mingdao looked at Lin Feng and said, "Hall Master Lin, you can have a good chat with the deputy hall masters. I won't disturb you." "My lord, please." Lin Feng cupped his fists and said. Kong Mingdao nodded and left. After Kong Mingdao left, the cultivators below immediately whispered to each other and discussed. It was obvious that Lin Feng, the hall master who had appeared out of nowhere, had aroused everyone's curiosity. Lin Feng was too young. What qualifications did such a young cultivator have to assume the position of Mission Hall's hall master? Many people felt that Lin Feng might have a strong background. The reason why he was able to become the hall master of the Mission Hall was most likely due to his connections. "Who is the vice palace master? Step forward and speak." Lin Feng said. The few vice palace masters looked at the middle-aged cultivator who was the leader. That cultivator was also a vice palace master. His name was Zhang Moyang. He had a strong background because he was the subordinate of the crown prince, Di Jue. Therefore, the rest of the people obeyed Zhang Moyang. It was the same for the few vice palace masters. Originally, Zhang Moyang thought that after the previous hall master left his position, the new hall master would become the new hall master. The position of the new hall master should have fallen on his head. However, Lin Feng had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. This caused Zhang Moyang to feel extremely furious. Zhang Moyang stood still and did not move. Naturally, the rest of the vice palace masters did not dare to step forward. Although Lin Feng might have a strong background, no matter how strong Lin Feng's background was, he could not be compared to Di Jue. Di Jue's talent was too strong. Moreover, he had broken through to the itinerant immortal realm. Many people felt that Di Jue would definitely be the successor of the Dao Saint Palace in the future. Moreover, Di Jue was the son of one of the palace masters. There were even rumors that Di Jue was the son of the Dao Saint Palace's founder. However, no one knew if this rumor was true or not. This rumor had always been circulating in the Dao Saint Palace. However, no one had ever been able to verify it. Lin Feng could not help but raise his eyebrows. He had been observing the few people standing at the front. This was because Lin Feng guessed that they should be the vice palace masters. However, Lin Feng saw that they were looking at the cultivator on the left. He had asked the vice palace masters to step forward, but as vice palace masters, they did not step forward. Obviously, it was because the cultivator on the left did not step forward. Lin Feng did not have much interest in the position of Mission Palace Master. However, since he had taken up the position, he would not let anyone step on him. He would never allow anyone to step on his head. To put it bluntly, he was the boss of this place. "Get the hell out here," Lin Feng said as he pointed at Zhang Moyang. "You called for me? What's the matter?" Zhang Moyang asked indifferently. He did not step forward. Ever since Di Jue had broken through to the itinerant immortal realm, more and more people had pledged allegiance to him. Those who pledged allegiance to Di Jue had become more and more arrogant. People like Zhang Moyang were already considered senior figures. Therefore, he became even more arrogant. Although he was only a vice palace master, he really did not take Lin Feng, the palace master, seriously. The cultivators below fell silent as well. They had already expected the situation before them. Therefore, they did not find it strange. Lin Feng walked toward Zhang Moyang. He smiled and said, "Interesting, interesting. I've just taken up the position of palace master, and there's already someone going against me. I love to teach people like you a lesson." "Brat, you better watch your mouth," Zhang Moyang said in a deep voice. "Kneel." Lin Feng's expression turned cold. With a cold shout, a powerful aura emanated from his body and directly suppressed Zhang Moyang. Zhang Moyang could not resist it. A loud thud was heard. He immediately knelt on the ground. Heavens! Is the new palace master so powerful? He can suppress Zhang Moyang with just his aura alone. Seeing that, some of the cultivators cried out in shock. They could not believe what they were seeing. This is going to be interesting. I wonder how he's going to deal with Zhang Moyang. After all, Zhang Moyang has the crown prince of our Dao Saint Palace behind him. Then, another cultivator said. Zhang Moyang, who was kneeling on the ground, suddenly had bloodshot eyes. He roared furiously, "Brat, how dare you make me kneel on the ground? Do you know who's behind me? Behind me is Crown Prince Di Jue. If you dare to humiliate me, that means you're humiliating Crown Prince Di Jue as well. Release me right now. Kneel on the ground and kowtow to me as an apology, and I can still spare your life. Otherwise, I'll definitely report this matter to His Highness the Crown Prince. At that time, His Highness the Crown Prince will tear you into pieces." Chapter 43:07. Now that Di Jue had completely risen in power, there was no one in the Dao Saint Palace who did not fear him. Even those loose immortals acted according to Di Jue's wishes. Therefore, Zhang Moyang was very confident that Lin Feng would be afraid as long as he mentioned Di Jue. However, Zhang Moyang was wrong this time. Di Jue was indeed powerful, but it was not enough to make Lin Feng fear him. Lin Feng sneered as he looked at Zhang Moyang and said, "How dare you threaten me after becoming a prisoner? You're offending your superior." Lin Feng's lips curled up into a cold smile. He looked at a vice palace master and asked, "How do you punish a subordinate for offending his superior in the Dao Saint Palace?" The vice palace master had long been frightened by Lin Feng's powerful strength to the point that his body was trembling. When he heard Lin Feng's question, he naturally did not dare to ignore Lin Feng. He said, "Young master, for offending your superior, your cultivation should be crippled." Lin Feng nodded and looked at Zhang Moyang. "Zhang Moyang, as the vice palace master of the Mission Palace, you knowingly broke the law. Today, I'll cripple your cultivation according to the rules of the Dao Saint Palace." "No, you can't cripple my cultivation. I'm the Crown Prince's man. If you cripple my cultivation, the Crown Prince won't let you off." Zhang Moyang roared in horror. Once again, he brought up Di Jue. He wanted to use Di Jue to intimidate Lin Feng. Lin Feng sneered. He did not care about Zhang Moyang's threat at all. He waved his sleeve. A powerful force slammed into Zhang Moyang's body. Zhang Moyang's body was sent flying. He spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. "My Dantian! My Dantian! How dare you cripple my Dantian? You'll die a horrible death." Zhang Moyang roared with hatred. His eyes turned blood red, and deep hatred flashed in his eyes. "Men, throw him out," Lin Feng said in a deep voice. The surrounding cultivators looked at each other, not daring to make a move. "What? Why are you so scared?" Lin Feng coldly said. Two cultivators gritted their teeth. and stepped forward. The two of them lifted Zhang Moyang up with one arm each. Then they dragged Zhang Moyang out and threw him out of the hall. Soon after, the two of them returned. "What are your names?" Lin Feng asked indifferently. The two of them knelt on the ground, and the cultivator on the left hurriedly said, reporting to the hall master, "This disciple's name is Shi Tao." The cultivator on the right hurriedly said, reporting to palace master, "This disciple's name is Lu Sun." That's right. You're both loyal and devoted to me, so I won't treat you unfairly. How about this? Both of you will take up the position of vice hall master. Now, you're both vice hall masters of the mission hall. Lin Feng said. After hearing Lin Feng's words, everyone was dumbfounded. The two cultivators were just ordinary deacons. If a deacon wanted to be promoted to vice hall master, he had to first become a grand deacon. There were 42 grand deacons in the mission hall. After becoming a grand deacon, he would be qualified to compete for the position of vice hall master when the position of vice hall master was vacant. As for who could be vice hall master, it was not up to the hall master to decide. The hall master had the right to make suggestions. However, this matter required a meeting between all the hall masters to determine the final quota. Lin Feng directly promoted Shi Tao and Lu Sun from ordinary deacons to vice hall masters. Indeed, many people were dumbfounded. One of the vice hall masters said, "Palace master, you can't do that. The Dao Saint Palace has its own rules. There are clear rules on how one can be promoted. Moreover, each palace can only appoint 5 vice palace masters. The palace master can't appoint a vice palace master alone. Even if he could only appoint one." "There's such a rule?" Lin Feng asked indifferently. The vice hall master quickly nodded and said, "Yes, palace master. The Dao Saint Palace values sect rules. Therefore, it's better not to violate the sect rules." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Do you think I'm an ordinary hall master? Let me tell you, even if Wu Yazi Bai Yendi and Xia Yuanxiang were itinerant immortals, they would have to respectfully address me as fellow Daoist. I'm not an ordinary hall master. This matter is settled. Shi Tao and Lu Sun are officially appointed as vice hall masters of the mission hall. In the future, let the two of them handle everything. Also, you 4 vice hall masters, if you have any problems, report them to vice hall master Shi Tao. And Lu Senator, if there's nothing important, don't bother me. However, I don't usually come to the mission hall, so you can't bother me even if you want to." After hearing Lin Feng's words, many people could not help but roll their eyes. Lin Feng obviously wanted to be a hands-off boss. Although Lin Feng was the mission hall master, he did not seem to want to deal with the matters of the mission hall. Next, everyone looked at Shi Tao and Lu Sun with envy and jealousy. These two guys made the right bet when no one came out to support Lin Feng. The two of them came out and immediately soared to the sky with a single step. Until now, Shi Tao and Lu Sun still hadn't recovered from their shock. Because happiness came too suddenly, the two of them were caught off guard. Many people around them congratulated the two of them. Only then did the two of them come back to their senses and kneel on the ground to show their loyalty to Lin Feng. "Get up, be loyal to me in the future, and I won't mistreat you," Lin Feng said with a smile. Lin Feng, a mysterious person, had suddenly become the mission hall master. The entire Dao Saint Palace's upper echelons were paying attention to this matter, especially some of the other hall masters. There were a total of 108 responsibility halls in the Dao Saint Palace. The remaining 108 hall masters were also paying attention to Lin Feng's appointment. The responsibility halls referred to the mission hall, the enforcement hall, and other halls. These halls maintained the sex operations. there was an obvious difference between them and the other halls. The other halls referred to the halls where the powerful cultivators of the sect resided. Therefore, when the matter in the mission hall spread out, it instantly caused a huge uproar. Soon, the news spread out. Many of the responsibility halls' hall masters called for a meeting. Some of the hall masters wanted to remove Lin Feng from his position as the mission hall master. Some of the hall masters even wanted to punish Lin Feng. This matter caused an even bigger uproar. Soon, another piece of news spread out. It was said that Crown Prince Di Jue had spoken. Therefore, those hall masters who had sided with Crown Prince Di Jue had joined forces to deal with Lin Feng. Now, that Crown Prince Di Jue had made his move. In many people's opinion, this new mission hall master would be in trouble. After offending Di Jue, it was very likely that he would die a tragic death. Chapter 43:08. Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue had also heard about this matter. Therefore, both of them came to Lin Feng's place and told him that if the palace master's meeting were to be held, they hoped that Lin Feng would take a step back. If he did so, he might be able to get a better view of things. This was because not all the palace masters were Crown Prince Di Jue's men. If Lin Feng took a step back, he might be able to gain the sympathy of the other palace masters. Then, the other palace masters would help Lin Feng. Lin Feng naturally knew that Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue had good intentions. Lin Feng did not agree or reject them. He casually brushed them off with a few perfunctory words. Very soon, someone came to inform Lin Feng that the palace master's meeting would be held at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that Lin Feng should attend it on time. Lin Feng sent the person away. On the second day, Lin Feng headed to the meeting hall. When he arrived, there were already many people gathered there. When everyone saw Lin Feng's arrival, the hall that was originally filled with venting suddenly quietened down. For many of the palace masters, it was their first time seeing Lin Feng. Therefore, when they saw Lin Feng, these palace masters were more curious. When they realized that Lin Feng was so young, they were extremely shocked. Such a young cultivator was actually appointed as the palace master of the Mission Palace. Although the Mission Palace was not a particularly important palace, wasn't it too hasty to appoint such a young cultivator like Lin Feng as the palace master of the Mission Palace? Or perhaps Lin Feng really had a powerful background? However, no matter how powerful his background was, it could not be more powerful than Di Jue, right? Although Zhang Moyang, whom Lin Feng had crippled, was not considered a big shot, the key was that Zhang Moyang was Di Jue's man. Moreover, Zhang Moyang had even mentioned Di Jue's name. However, Lin Feng still did not let Zhang Moyang off. Obviously, Lin Feng did not give Di Jue any face. Di Jue's character was gloomy. Anyone who dared to disobey or offend him would not have a good ending. Since Lin Feng dared to touch Di Jue's men, Di Jue would naturally not let Lin Feng off. "Ha, I'm sorry to have kept everyone waiting," Lin Feng said with a faint smile. Although he said sorry, he didn't mean it at all. Lin Feng found a seat and sat down. At this moment, one of the hall masters said, "Now that everyone is here, let's cut to the chase." Many people nodded. Everyone was busy, so they naturally wouldn't waste time. A hall master called Gongsun Long stood up. He looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, "Hall Master Lin, do you know your crime?" Gongsun Long was a subimmortal and was highly regarded by Di Ju. He took the initiative to attack Lin Feng. The show is about to begin. Many neutral hall masters could not help but think to themselves as they waited for a good show to start. They couldn't figure out Lin Feng's background. However, Lin Feng was so young. He had just joined the Dao Saint Palace, but he was already able to become the Mission Hall Master. It was obvious that he had a strong background. In the end, Lin Feng might really end up dead. However, if he clashed with Di Jue, it might end up with both of them suffering heavy injuries. This was the outcome that everyone wanted to see the most. Lin Feng raised his eyelids. He didn't even look at Gong Sun Long. He said, "What crime have I committed? What a joke. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can punish me with just a sentence? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in the mirror?" Upon hearing Lin Feng's words, many of the hall masters' mouths twitched violently. Lin Feng was really arrogant, a young cultivator, a new hall master. He actually dared to provoke an experienced hall master. He was simply audacious to the extreme. Everyone felt that Lin Feng must have someone backing him up. Perhaps there was someone backing him up. That was why Lin Feng was so daring. However, so what if he had someone backing him up? Even if he had someone backing him up, he still wouldn't be able to defeat the crown prince, Di Jue. Gong Sun Long looked coldly at Lin Feng and said, "Dealing with people above the rank of deputy hall master requires a meeting of the hall masters to discuss and decide. You personally removed deputy hall master Zhang Moyang. This is your first crime. You only have the right to propose the appointment of a deputy hall master. You don't have the right to appoint him. The appointment of a deputy hall master also requires a meeting of the hall masters. You actually appointed a deputy hall master privately. This is your second crime. There are only 5 deputy hall masters in each palace. However, you arbitrarily added one more person and changed the rules left behind by your ancestors. This is your third crime. You just became a hall master, but you ignored the rules of the sect and committed 3 major crimes. How can someone like you be qualified to be a hall master? Therefore, I suggest that you remove your position as hall master. At the same time, you have to be punished for violating the rules of the sect and harming your fellow disciples. Are you done?" Lin Feng was speechless as he looked at Gong Sun Long. This fellow was really good at finding fault with people. He was simply picking bones from eggs. Even if he did not commit any crimes, he could still come up with a few. Gong Sun Long snorted coldly. He did not pay any attention to Lin Feng. Instead, he looked at the others. "Hall masters, I have said what I wanted to say. Now, I suggest that Lin Feng be removed from his position as Mission Hall Master. At the same time, he should be locked up in the heavenly prison and be judged on another day. Those who agree with my suggestion, please raise your hand." After Gong Sun Long finished speaking, one by one, the hall masters raised their hands. Although not all of the hall masters who raised their hands were on Di Jue's side. However, there were definitely some hall masters who were on Di Jue's side. There were also some neutral hall masters who could not figure out Lin Feng's background. Therefore, they decided to wait and see. There are a total of 55 people who agree. More than half of them agree. "Lin Feng, do you have anything else to say?" Gong Sun Long looked at Lin Feng with a complacent gaze. In his opinion, Lin Feng was done for this time. Lin Feng said indifferently, "I want to say that the hall masters who voted to convict me are a bunch of trash." When Lin Feng said these words, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone had an expression of disbelief on their faces. Many of them even wondered if they had heard wrongly. Lin Feng, he actually dared to say that the hall masters who voted to convict him were trash. This was no longer something that could be described as arrogant. He was simply courting death. He had offended so many hall masters at once. He really did not know how to spell the word death. "Brat, what did you say?" Many hall masters looked at Lin Feng with unfriendly gazes. "I said, among the people here, the hall masters who voted to convict me are all trash." "Why? Don't you understand human language? It must have been hard on you. After all, You are transformed from a monster. It is normal that you did not evolve well. I take back what I said earlier. I should not have discriminated against a retard like you. Lin Feng said indifferently. Many people laughed bitterly. They had seen all kinds of people, but this was the first time they had seen someone as arrogant as Lin Feng. Brat, you have committed 3 major crimes. You are no longer the mission hall master. How dare you mock me? You are offending your superiors. I will cripple you right now. The hall master, who was mocked by Lin Feng, stood up and walked toward Lin Feng. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Boom. He attacked. Endless demonic energy spread out. The hall master threw a punch at Lin Feng. He wanted to break Lin Feng's meridians and cripple Lin Feng's cultivation. Chapter 43:09. The hall master who attacked was called Zhang Liming. His original body was a dark demonic lizard. He was extremely powerful, and among the many hall masters, he was an existence that no one dared to provoke. He had long since submitted to the crown prince, Di Jue. He was one of Di Jue's senior figures. The power of his fist was too great, causing many of the temple masters to be secretly shocked. In their opinion, Lin Feng was in danger, facing Zhang Liming's attack. Kneel. Just as Zhang Liming's attack was about to hit Lin Feng suddenly shouted. A powerful aura surged out from him. It directly pressed down on Zhang Liming. Lin Feng's aura was too terrifying. It instantly destroyed Zhang Liming's divine ability. Then, it suppressed Zhang Liming. Thump, thump, 2 consecutive sounds. Zhang Liming's body could not withstand the powerful aura emitted from Lin Feng's body. He directly knelt on the ground. What's going on? When they saw this scene, everyone was completely dumbfounded. With Zhang Liming's powerful cultivation, he actually could not withstand the aura emitted from Lin Feng's body. Wasn't this too inconceivable? Lin Feng was so young, but he was already so terrifying. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Zhang Liming let out a series of angry roars. He struggled violently, but it was useless. With his cultivation, he could not break free from Lin Feng's suppression. Zhang Liming's eyes turned blood red. In front of so many hall masters, he was actually suppressed in an instant. Moreover, he was forced to kneel in front of Lin Feng. This was a great humiliation. This was simply a great humiliation. Zhang Liming had never suffered such a great humiliation before. Currently, Zhang Liming's hatred for Lin Feng could not be washed away even with all the water in the 5 lakes and 4 seas. Brat, you're no longer the hall master of the mission hall. How dare you be so presumptuous? Damn it! Take this brat down and hand him over to the crown prince. Another palace master stood up and shouted coldly. Obviously, he was also one of Di Jue's men. As soon as his voice fell, more than a dozen hall masters immediately responded. These hall masters saw that Lin Feng was not to be trifled with, so they wanted to work together to deal with Lin Feng. More than a dozen palace masters rushed towards Lin Feng. All of you kneel as well. Lin Feng coldly looked at the dozen hall masters. With a cold shout, a powerful force surged out once again. This time, it suppressed the dozen hall masters. Thump, thump, thump. None of the hall masters could withstand the terrifying pressure emanating from Lin Feng's body. They immediately knelt on the ground. More than a dozen palace masters knelt beside Lin Feng. Oh my God, is this real? The corners of the other hall masters' mouths could not help but twitch violently. The scene before their eyes was simply too shocking. The weaker palace masters were at the Emperor realm, while the stronger ones were at the subimmortal realm. With such a powerful cultivation, even the aura emanating from Lin Feng's body could not withstand it. How powerful was Lin Feng? Many people's hearts were in a mess. I've said it before. In my eyes, all of you are just a bunch of trash. Trash like you. You want to punish me for my crimes? What a joke. Even if Kong Mingdao came, he would not dare to punish me. Who do you think you are? You don't have any self-awareness at all. Lin Feng was still as arrogant as ever as he loudly cursed at the hall masters. They were all high and mighty existences, but in front of Lin Feng, they were called trash. Many of them were gnashing their teeth in hatred. However, when they saw how terrifying Lin Feng was, how could they dare to refute Lin Feng? They would only be humiliating themselves. I don't think there's any need to continue today's meeting. As for you trash, continue to kneel. After 10 days and 10 nights, I'll return you your freedom. Lin Feng said indifferently. When they heard Lin Feng's words, the hall masters almost vomited blood. With their status, kneeling on the ground for 10 days and 10 nights, would they still have the face to continue staying in the Dao Saint Palace? At that time, they would definitely become the laughingstock of the Dao Saint Palace. Brother Lin, what made you so angry? Why is fellow Taoist Lin so angry? At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the void. In the next moment, Kong Mingdao walked out of the void. Kong Mingdao was in charge of running the Dao Saint Palace. As for the other two human immortals, they were not interested in power. They spent most of their time cultivating. My lord, when they saw Kong Mingdao, the hall masters hurriedly got up and bowed to him. Lin Feng smiled and said, I only crippled a vice hall master who dared to offend me, and then appointed 2 new vice hall masters. These people want to strip me of my position as mission hall master and even punish me for my crimes. These trash don't know their place. What a joke. Today, I'll teach them a lesson and let them know that there are some people they can't afford to offend. Many people sighed. Lin Feng did not hold back in front of Kong Mingdao. His personality was a little too arrogant. They wondered how Kong Mingdao would deal with Lin Feng. However, when they heard Kong Mingdao call Lin Feng Brother Lin, many people were shocked. How strong was Lin Feng's cultivation level? Kong Mingdao called him fellow Taoist. In fact, the rules of the Dao Saint Palace only restricted ordinary people. The top experts were naturally not restricted. If Lin Feng was one of those top experts, he would naturally not be restricted by the rules of the Dao Saint Palace. Kong Mingdao looked at Lin Feng and said, I was in seclusion before, so I didn't know what happened at the hall masters meeting. If I had known, today's incident would not have happened. Brother Lin, since you've vented your anger, why don't you let these hall masters go? After all, they are the upper echelons of the Dao Saint Palace. If news of a group of people kneeling on the ground for 10 days and 10 nights gets out, the Dao Saint Palace will become a laughing stock. Kong Mingdao was a sly old fox, so no one could guess what he was thinking. However, since Kong Mingdao had pleaded for leniency, they had to give him face. Lin Feng waved his hand, and the aura suppressing these people dissipated. He said, a bunch of trash. I'm only sparing you today because of my lord. If you dare to jump around in front of me again, even if the heavens come pleading for you, it'll be useless. When had the group of hall masters ever been humiliated like this? All of them were filled with hatred. They could not wait to cut Lin Feng into pieces. However, these hall masters only dared to think about it in their hearts and did not dare to act on it at all. Lin Feng did not continue to stay there and left with Kong Mingdao. When the two of them parted outside the hall, Kong Mingdao frowned slightly. He felt that Lin Feng was really a troublemaker. However, when he thought of how arrogant and domineering Lin Feng was and how he did not know how to endure, Kong Mingdao could not help but look down on Lin Feng even more. He even felt that the Heavenway Infinite diagram scheming against Lin Feng was completely unnecessary. Chapter 43:10. As the saying went, there was no impenetrable wall in the world. The news of Lin Feng, the new palace master, causing a ruckus in the palace master's meeting, had spread throughout the Dao Saint Palace. The commotion was even greater. The palace masters who were kneeling on the ground did not even dare to step out of their doors. It was too embarrassing. They were like a pack of wounded wolves, hiding in the dark and licking their wounds. They were waiting for the chance to take revenge on Lin Feng. The number of people who came to visit Lin Feng increased day by day. However, Lin Feng had no interest in meeting them. He came here to rob the Dao Source Immortal Palace. He was not interested in getting to know the experts of the Dao Saint Palace. On this day, Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue came to Lin Feng's place. The two sisters were as beautiful as ever. They were the goddesses in the hearts of countless people. Many people in the Dao Saint Palace admired the two sisters. It was said that Di Ju even wanted to take the two sisters into his harem. They wanted to become two of his 3,000 beauties in his harem. However, the two sisters naturally did not agree to it. If it was any other time, Di Ju would have abducted the two sisters by force. After all, he was already used to this kind of thing. No one dared to offend Di Ju. Although Di Ju had crossed the line, the others could only turn a blind eye to it. However, the two sisters could not use such a method to deal with Xia Rushuan. This was because they had an expert like Xia Yuanxiang in their faction. Di Ju still had to be wary of her. "Young master, there's a senior sister who wants to meet you. I wonder if you're free?" Xia Rushuan asked. "Senior sister? Who's that?" Lin Feng could not help but ask. If it was someone else who came to look for Lin Feng would have rejected the person directly. However, since Xia Rushuan had personally brought it up, Lin Feng still had to give her face. Who asked Xia Rushuan to be so beautiful? Although Lin Feng had no intention of taking Xia Rushuan in for the time being, he enjoyed looking at her beautiful face every day. "It's senior sister Shangguan Bingyun," Xia Rushuan said. Lin Feng had heard about Shangguan Bingyun from Wu Yazi and the others. This woman was one of the 3 top-notch prodigies who had competed with Crown Prince Di Jue for the position of the future palace master. He was originally as famous as Di Jue, Mu Yunyi, and Murong Songnan. Although she was a woman, she had great talent and was a sub-immortal. She was able to challenge and defeat loose immortals. Moreover, their origins were also quite mysterious. Their cultivation was unfathomable, and they were incomparably powerful. Their bodies were shrouded in countless mysterious veils. Lin Feng had only heard of Shangguan Bingyun's name, but had never seen her in person. "No problem. When shall we meet?" Lin Feng asked. "Tomorrow, Ruyue and I will bring you to the Frozen Cloud Sacred Palace." Xia Rushuan said. "All right." Lin Feng nodded. After Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue left, Lin Feng sealed the room with restrictions and entered the space-time continuum. Then, Lin Feng summoned the Gourd of Fortune. Lin Feng had ignored the Saint Devil Emperor since he had been devoured by the Gourd of Fortune. This was because Lin Feng knew that refining the Saint Devil Emperor would not be easy. The Gourd of Fortune could dissolve the Saint Devil Emperor's magic power. After being imprisoned by the Gourd of Fortune for a period of time, refining the Saint Devil Emperor would be much easier. "Brat, let me go. You dare to imprison me? You've got guts." Our Saint Devil clan still has several old ancestor-level existences. If you dare to kill me, those old ancestor-level existences will definitely sense it. At that time, you'll die for sure. If you don't kill me and let me go, you'll be able to obtain endless benefits. I think you know what to choose, right? The Saint Devil Emperor said. Lin Feng sneered. Then he rolled his eyes and said, "How about this? In order to show your sincerity, you'll have to teach me all the divine abilities you've cultivated." The Saint Devil Emperor sneered. "Let me go first. I'll teach you everything." The Saint Devil Emperor was not stupid. Therefore, it would be too difficult for him to teach Lin Feng his divine abilities first. Lin Feng also knew this. Lin Feng sneered and ignored the Saint Devil Emperor. The Gourd of Fortune might still need some time to dissolve his magic power. This could not be rushed. Of course, Lin Feng was not in a hurry. The next day, Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue came to Lin Feng's place. Every time Lin Feng saw the two sisters, he had a special feeling. Their beauty seemed different every day. Accompanied by the two sisters, Lin Feng went to Shangguan Bingyun's Ice Cloud Divine Palace. There were many people gathered outside Lin Feng's residence. Many cultivators wanted to see Lin Feng's elegance. "Look, that young master is Lin Feng. Hall Master Lin is too young. I didn't expect him to be so terrifying at such a young age," someone exclaimed. "I heard that Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue often come to his place. Could it be that they have a close relationship with Lin Feng?" Someone said enviously when they saw the two sisters beside Lin Feng. Goddesses like Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue had too many admirers. "That's very likely. This guy is really enjoying the good fortune of having multiple wives." Someone said, "My goddesses have fallen just like that. How sad." Someone said, wanting to cry, "We can only look at beauties like Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue from afar. Such beauties definitely belong to experts like Lin Feng." Someone continued, "Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue are women that Crown Prince Dijue has his eyes on. That brat actually dares to touch them. He's simply courting death. Just wait and see. That brat won't have a good ending." Someone sneered. "He was most likely one of Crown Prince Dijue's men." Lin Feng didn't care about the surrounding cultivators. Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue arrived at Ice Cloud Divine Palace. Actually, with Lin Feng's current status, he was qualified to build his own palace. It was just that Lin Feng was too lazy to build a palace. He was someone who would leave after firing a shot. What was the point of building a palace? It was purely a waste of time and materials. Someone came to receive Lin Feng and led Lin Feng to a guest hall. A maid poured spiritual tea for him. Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue accompanied Lin Feng. Not long after, Lin Feng heard the sound of footsteps. Not long after, a beautiful woman who looked like she had walked out of a painting entered the living room. When Lin Feng saw this woman, Lin Feng's face was filled with astonishment. He actually knew this woman. Furthermore, this woman's relationship with Lin Feng wasn't shallow. This woman was none other than Lin Feng. She was the Martial Spirit Palace's Yu. Chapter 43:11. Lin Feng really did not expect that Yu was actually Shangguan Bingyun. Yu had left the Sky Martial Continent many years ago, and Lin Feng had never seen Yu again. It seemed that Yu had come to the Dao Saint Palace. Lin Feng remembered that Yuji's hometown was in the Sky Martial Continent. But how did Yuji get involved with the Dao Saint Palace? Previously, Lin Feng had heard that Shangguan Bingyun had a deep relationship with the Dao Saint Palace. Did that mean that Yuji had a deep relationship with the Dao Saint Palace? He did not know if something had happened in between that he did not know, but it really made Lin Feng feel extremely strange. Lin Feng, it's really you. Yuji smiled when she saw Lin Feng. She said, I heard that the palace master of the Mission Palace is called Lin Feng, so I guess that it might be you. I didn't expect it to really be you. Yu Ji was very beautiful, but her beauty was different from Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue. Yu Ji was like a woman who had walked out of a painting, elegant and moving. Her every move had a noble and elegant temperament. Back then, when Lin Feng's cultivation was not considered strong, Yu Ji was already very strong. Of course, Yu Ji's growth speed might still be a little slower than Lin Feng's. However, Yu Ji was able to seize the opportunity to break through to her current level after the great changes in the world. It was already extremely heaven-defying. In fact, the reason why Yu Ji could not break through quickly was exactly the same as the situation that the Red World Fairy encountered. It was not that Yu Ji's talent was not enough, but that the world had changed and the laws of the world had suppressed her, preventing her from breaking through. Now that the apocalypse had arrived, the myriad worlds had once again become a golden age for cultivation, and Yu Ji's cultivation speed had greatly increased. Lin Feng said with a smile, "I'm also very surprised to see you here." "Senior sister, do you know Lin Gongzi?" Xia Rushuan asked in surprise. Yu Ji nodded and said, "We've known each other for a long time. I still have some things to discuss with Lin Gongzi. So the two of you can do your own things first." "Yes," Xia Rushuan and Xia Ruyue replied, and left. After they left, Lin Feng asked, "Is it convenient to talk here?" "It's convenient. I've set up a restriction here," Yu Ji said. Lin Feng nodded and asked, "Why did you come to the Dao Saint Palace?" "And his status in the Dao Saint Palace is so extraordinary," Yu Ji said. "Actually, my identity is fake. When I was traveling through the universe, I saved a woman called Shengguan Bingyan, but her injuries were too severe, and I couldn't really save her. Before she died, she told me many things about the Dao Saint Palace. When she was young, she left Dao Saint Palace with her elders, but her elders died while traveling in the starry sky. She was attacked on the way back. So I took her place and entered Dao Saint Palace." Lin Feng said, "I see. Do you plan to stay in Dao Saint Palace forever?" Yu Ji shook her head and said, "Dao Saint Palace isn't a place to stay for long. Although on the surface, there are 4 successors in Dao Saint Palace, which are me, Di Jue, Muyun Yi, and Murong Tsangnan. I know very well that there's only one true successor in Dao Saint Palace, and that's Di Jue." Lin Feng said, "That might not be the case, right? It's hard to say until the end. Who knows, one of you might surpass Di Jue, and by then, Di Jue will naturally have to withdraw from the competition." Yu Ji said, "If someone surpasses Di Jue, I'm afraid it won't end well for them, because Di Jue is the great-great-grandson of the Dao Saint Palace's founder. He's the direct descendant of the Dao Saint Palace. Very few people know about this, but the Heaven's Infinite Diagram and the 3 human immortals definitely know about this. They'll definitely support Di Jue to become the Palace Master of Dao Saint Palace. As for the 3 of us being on par with Di Jue, it's just an illusion, the Heaven's Infinite Diagram, and the others don't want to disappoint the people of Dao Saint Palace, so they created such an illusion. Moreover, the current Palace Master's cultivation base is not high enough, so he's already a mere figurehead. He doesn't have much power in his hands anymore. As for when they'll support Di Jue, it'll depend on what the Heaven's Infinite Diagram thinks." Lin Feng stroked his chin. He did not expect there to be so many inside stories. He asked, "Then why are you staying in Dao Saint Palace?" "Di Jue isn't a good person. If he becomes the Palace Master, he'll take the 3 of you as his first target." Yu Ji said, "I'm very clear about this. The reason I'm not leaving is because I want to obtain the 36 scrolls of the heavenly path that's passed down in Dao Saint Palace. It's a top-grade celestial scripture that's priceless. If I can obtain it, it'll be extremely beneficial to my cultivation base. a top-grade celestial scripture. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up immediately. The value of a top-grade celestial scripture was simply too great. Lin Feng was also spying on the top-grade celestial scripture. However, Lin Feng knew that any top-grade celestial scripture was incomparably precious. It was simply too difficult to obtain such a top-grade celestial scripture. How can I obtain this top-grade celestial scripture? Lin Feng asked. Originally, I wanted to learn this top-grade celestial scripture from the Heaven's Infinite Diagram, but the Heaven's Infinite Diagram did not impart it to me. However, after some investigation, I found out that this top-grade celestial scripture is branded on a stone tablet in the Tao Source Immortal Palace. If I can sneak into the Tao Source Immortal Palace, I'll be able to obtain this top-grade celestial scripture. Yu Ji said, "Isn't the Tao Source Immortal Palace the place where the Tao Source Immortal Pills are stored?" Lin Feng asked, puzzled. Yu Ji explained, "That place not only stores the Tao Source Immortal Palace, but also the most precious treasure vault. Therefore, there are many precious treasures stored there. Hee, it's really a place that I'm looking forward to." Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Yu Ji asked, "Why did you sneak into the Tao Source Immortal Palace? Are you also spying on the Tao Source Immortal Palace?" One had to admit that Yu Ji knew Lin Feng very well. Yu Ji instantly guessed Lin Feng's purpose for coming here. Lin Feng said, "That's right. I also want to enter the Tao Source Immortal Palace and loot it, but I haven't found a suitable opportunity yet. I've already waited for 100 years, but I still haven't found an opportunity. As long as the Heaven's Infinite Diagram doesn't leave the Tao Source Immortal Palace, no one can enter it. Even if they manage to enter the Tao Source Immortal Palace, only death awaits them." Yu Ji said. Lin Feng frowned. "Then if the Heaven's Infinite Diagram doesn't leave, does that mean we won't be able to enter the Tao Source Immortal Palace?" Yu Ji said, "Don't worry, it won't be long before something big happens. At that time, the Tao's Infinite Diagram will definitely leave the Tao Source Immortal Palace." Lin Feng asked in surprise, "Something big? What's going to happen?" Chapter 43:12. Yu Ji said, "It's a long story, so I'll give you a brief summary." Lin Feng nodded, ready to listen. At this time, Yu Ji said, "A long time ago, I heard that the founder of the Tao Saint Palace and the third Heavenly Emperor joined forces to kill a stone sovereign. Before the stone sovereign died, he sealed his son in a divine stone. The stone sovereign's son woke up a few years ago, and it's said that he wants to avenge his father. The undying world is very powerful, so it'll be difficult to take revenge. Of course, the Tao Saint Palace is also very powerful, but the Tao Saint Palace can't compare to the undying world. Therefore, the stone sovereign's son will definitely make a move on the Tao Saint Palace first. I heard that the stone sovereign's son is preparing to make a move. I don't know when exactly, but it should be soon. This matter is a secret that no one else knows about. The only reason I know about this is because I know a subordinate of the stone sovereign's son. I heard all of this from her." After hearing the news, Lin Feng's face suddenly showed an extremely moved expression. If what Yu Ji said was true, then the news was really shocking. It could definitely be described as earth-shattering. However, was what Yu Ji said true? Lin Feng asked, "Is this news reliable? It can't be unreliable, right? Moreover, that person knows that you're from the Tao Saint Palace, so it's even more impossible for her to tell the truth." Yu Ji said, "She knows that I'm an imposter and came here for the immortal scripture, so the news should be reliable. We just need to wait for a while to verify the authenticity of the news." Lin Feng nodded. All they had to do was wait. The stone sovereign's son's cultivation was absolutely terrifying. If he made a move, perhaps the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram would have to personally make a move to resist the stone sovereign's son. At that time, the heavenly Tao everlasting diagram would definitely leave the Tao source immortal palace. At that time, it would be a good opportunity to rob the Tao source immortal palace. Thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. At this time, Yu Ji said, Di Ju Yi is a vicious and merciless person. Now that you've made him lose face, I wonder what he'll do next. You must be careful of him. I will, Lin Feng replied. The two talked for more than 2 hours before Lin Feng left. This time, he was very happy to meet Yuji. One reason was because Yuji was his old friend, and the other was because he knew about the Stone Sovereign's son. Of course, if there was a chance, Lin Feng planned to take Yuji into his harem in the future. Naturally, he couldn't allow anyone else to benefit from such a rare beauty. When Lin Feng returned to his residence, he saw a woman standing beside the courtyard. The woman was dressed in a long pink dress. She had a graceful figure and a charming temperament. Her face was so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was definitely a masterpiece of the heavens, a stunner in the human world. Seeing that Lin Feng had returned, the female cultivator bowed to him and smiled. I presume that young master is Lin Feng? Who are you? Lin Feng narrowed his eyes as he sized up this beautiful woman. He had an intuition that this woman definitely came here with a purpose. My name is Nangong Lingwei. There are some things that I wish to discuss with young master. I wonder if young master will give me the opportunity to do so, the woman said with a charming smile. Lin Feng smiled and said, if it were anyone else, I would have flatly refused. However, I welcome a beauty like you. We can have an in-depth conversation. Sure, Lingwei would also like to have an in-depth conversation with young master, Nangong Lingwei said with a smile. Lin Feng opened the courtyard door and entered with Nangong Lingwei. Then, Lin Feng closed the door. The two of them entered the living room. Once they were seated, Lin Feng smiled and said, I wonder what you wish to discuss with me? Or perhaps you just want to talk about romance with me? Nangong Lingwei said, it won't be too late to talk about romance after we've finished discussing proper matters. Fairy, what do you mean by proper business? Lin Feng looked at Nangong Lingwei and asked with a smile that was not a smile. He knew that this woman had an ulterior motive for coming here, but Lin Feng did not know what it was. However, this woman did not seem to have any intention of hiding it. Nangong Lingwei said, my young master is planning to recruit Lin Gongzi. Oh, your young master? Who is your young master? Lin Feng asked in surprise. Crown Prince Di Jue. Nangong Lingwei said, Crown Prince Di Jue is your young master? Lin Feng's face revealed an extremely surprised expression. He had never thought of this. That's right. Initially, my young master was already furious and even wanted to kill Lin Gongzi. However, I stopped him. It would be a pity if a shocking talent like Lin Gongzi were to die. Nangong Lingwei said. Lin Feng sneered and said, what a joke. Do you think Di Jue can kill me? I don't think so. Nangong Lingwei said, if Lin Gongzi knew how powerful my young master is, Lin Gongzi would not say this. My young master's strength is simply unimaginable. Lin Feng did not refute Nangong Lingwei. He said, if you agree to accompany me for 3 days, I might consider it. Nangong Lingwei giggled. Nangong Lingwei smiled charmingly. It had to be said that this woman was really too charming. Her every move, every gaze, and every smile was so beautiful that it was suffocating. There are some things that you can't say carelessly. My young master is very jealous. If he finds out that you want to touch his woman, no one in this world will be able to save you. Nangong Lingwei said, with a smile. Oh, is that so? I heard that Di Jue has 3,000 beauties in his harem. Are you one of them? Lin Feng asked. Yes, not only am I one of the beauties in his harem, but I'm also the person that my young master trusts the most. Nangong Lingwei said. TSK, you have the heavenly Yin body, right? What a rare body constitution. Di Jue actually kept your primordial Yin until now. It's really surprising. It seems like he wants to wait until a crucial moment to take away your primordial Yin energy. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes and looked at Nangong Lingwei. You've done quite a lot of research on body constitutions. You can actually sense my body constitution so quickly, Nangong Lingwei said in surprise. Lin Feng stood up and walked toward Nangong Lingwei. He said, Of course, I like to study this. Don't follow Di Jue anymore. Follow me. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Feng directly grabbed Nangong Lingwei. Swoosh! Nangong Lingwei instantly disappeared and reappeared more than 10 meters away. She said indifferently, It seems like you don't intend to accept my young master's offer. Of course, Di Jue may seem powerful to others, but to me, he's nothing. Lin Feng said with a smirk. Chapter 43:13. Nangong Lingwei said, If I'm not mistaken, Lin Gongzi's combat strength must have reached the level of a bodiless celestial. Your innate talent is indeed powerful, and it's normal for you to be confident. However, you have no idea how shocking my young master's strength is. Apart from his own strength, my young master's luck is monstrous. He has inherited many powerful and ancient orthodoxies and collected countless powerful Dharma treasures. Not only that, but even the legendary Devil Realm's 5 great treasures will be in my young master's possession. At that time, my young master's strength will be even more powerful. After hearing Nangong Lingwei's words, Lin Feng could not help but feel shocked. As the saying went, the speaker had no intention, but the listener had a heart. What did Nangong Lingwei mean when she said his young master would soon obtain the Devil Realm's 5 great treasures? If he wanted to obtain the Devil Realm's 5 great treasures, he would first need the Devil Master token. The Devil Master token could help people search for the whereabouts of the Devil Realm's 5 great treasures. However, the Devil Master token was currently in his hands. Therefore, it was impossible for Di Jue to find the Devil Realm's 5 great treasures. However, Nangong Lingwei's words were thought-provoking. First of all, everyone knew how terrifying Di Jue was. Therefore, there was no need for Nangong Lingwei to promote what kind of treasure Di Jue was about to obtain to increase his deterrence. Secondly, although Nangong Lingwei had mentioned the Devil Realm's 5 great treasures, Lin Feng felt that she was just casually mentioning it. Why would she bring it up? Lin Feng thought of Lin Yunsong, who had given him the Devil Master token in order to avenge his son and daughter who had died. Tragically, Lin Yunsong had been searching for the Dao Saint Palace cultivators who had killed them. Moreover, Lin Yunsong had previously said that if he could not find them, he would hide in the Dao Saint Palace to look for them. Had Lin Yunsong been captured by them? Was that why Nangong Lingwei had said that Di Jue would soon obtain the Devil Realm's 5 great treasures? Lin Feng knew that the people from the Devil Realm had colluded with the cultivators from the Dao Saint Palace to look for Lin Yunsong. Therefore, there was a high probability that Lin Yunsong would be captured. As Crown Prince Di Jue's most trusted person, it was normal for Nangong Lingwei to know about Lin Yunsong and the Devil Master's token. Lin Feng tried his best to calm himself down. Lin Yunsong was an expert of the demonic path, but he was a good person. Moreover, Lin Yunsong had even given the Demon Master token to Lin Feng. Lin Feng also treated Lin Yunsang as an elder. If Lin Yunsang was in trouble, Lin Feng would definitely go and rescue him. Lin Feng said, without batting an eyelid, "Don't continue to praise Di Jue in front of me. I admit that Di Jue is indeed a powerful person, but he's not as powerful as what you said. He is indeed a person with great luck, but he is not as lucky as you said. Let's not talk about other things, just the matter of the 5 great treasures of the Devil Realm that you just mentioned is not credible." Many people have heard of the legend of the 5 great treasures of the Devil Realm, but no one has ever seen them before. So don't try to fool me with fairy tales. I won't believe what you're saying. The reason Lin Feng said this was to provoke Nangong Lingwei. In this way, Nangong Lingwei might reveal some secrets. Nangong Lingwei said, "I can tell you clearly that the 5 great treasures of the Devil Realm are not legends. They really exist. Rumor has it that as long as a cultivator obtains the legendary Devil Master token, not only can they use it to command the Devil Realm, but they can also use it to find the legendary 5 great treasures of the Devil Realm." Lin Feng said indifferently, "Could it be that Di Jue has obtained the Devil Master token?" Nangong Lingwei nodded and said, "Of course, my young master has already obtained the Devil Master token. He's just waiting for the right opportunity to find the 5 great treasures of the Devil Realm. My young master's luck is unimaginable. If you join my young master, you'll gain great benefits in the future." Nangong Lingwei's words were both true and false. However, Lin Feng was basically certain that Lin Yunsang had been captured by Di Jue. This matter was a little troublesome. Lin Feng said, "How about this? Give me some time to think about it." "All right, I'll give Lin Gongzi 3 days. After 3 days, I'll come and look for Lin Gongzi," Nangong Lingwei said. Lin Feng said with a smile, "Don't be in such a hurry to leave. Why don't we make an appointment at dusk, under a tree on a willow branch, on the night of the 24 moonlit bridges, where jade people can play the flute?" Nangong Lingwei could not help but roll her eyes. She ignored Lin Feng and turned around to leave. After Nangong Lingwei left, Lin Feng also left quickly and returned to the god of Ice Cloud Palace. When Yuji saw that Lin Feng had returned not long after leaving, she was slightly surprised. She asked, "What happened? Why did you return in such a hurry?" Lin Feng said, "Indeed, something has happened. I have a friend who seems to have been captured by Di Jue. I don't have anyone I can trust here, so I'd like you to help me find out." "All right, wait patiently for a while. I'll tell you the results of the investigation tomorrow," Yuji said. "No problem." Lin Feng nodded. He did not thank her, because with his relationship with Yuji, there was no need for him to thank her. The next day, Lin Feng came to the god of Ice Cloud Palace again. When he saw Yuji, Lin Feng asked, How's the investigation?" Yuji said, "Some time ago, Di Jue returned from the Blood Refinement Great World with a group of cultivators following him. They seemed to be experts from the Devil Path. After those people entered Di Jue's residence, they never appeared again. I wonder if the person you're looking for is in there?" Lin Feng took a deep breath and said, "It seems like my friend should be in there. He should be imprisoned by Di Jue now. I have to think of a way to rescue him." Yuji said, "Di Jue's residence is arranged according to the position of the innate 8 trigrams. There are a total of 8 palaces located in the 8 formation eyes. The interior of the formation is divided into many courtyards, and those courtyards are densely covered with various formations. It's said that Di Jue has cultivated a heavenly prison at the center of the entire 8 trigrams formation. If your friend is really captured, he must be imprisoned in that heavenly prison." but that place is like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. It's easier said than done to rescue him. Lin Feng said, "Yesterday that woman, Nangong Lingwei, came to recruit me. I plan to take advantage of this opportunity to enter and investigate." Yuji said, "That's good too. After I investigate the situation, I'll think of a way to lure Di Jue out. After Di Jue leaves the Dao Saint Palace, control the formation to seal Di Jue's residence to prevent the news from leaking. Then, quickly go to the heavenly prison to rescue him. At that time, the probability of successfully rescuing him will be much higher." Chapter 43:14. On the agreed date, Nangong Lingwei came again. After seeing Nangong Lingwei, Lin Feng still felt that she was breathtaking. There were many beautiful women in this world. However, there were very few women who were unforgettable. Nangong Lingwei was an unforgettable woman. "I wonder what Lin Gongzi has thought about it." Nangong Lingwei asked straightforwardly when she saw Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "I want to see Di Jue. There are some things that I need to discuss with him face to face." "That's fine too. Come with me now. I'll arrange for you to see my young master," Nangong Lingwei said. Lin Feng said, "No problem." He and Nangong Lingwei walked toward Di Juyi's residence. Lin Feng said with a smile, "Aren't you curious about what I'm going to talk about with Di Juyi?" "Not at all," Nangong Lingwei said nonchalantly. Lin Feng said, "I plan to talk to Di Ju about you and me. I hope I can get you over. If you dare to talk nonsense, you'll definitely die a horrible death." Nangong Lingwei said coldly. Lin Feng said, "Do you think Di Ju will go against me because of you?" "I think Di Ju might really give you to me in order to win me over," Nangong Lingwei said coldly. "You can give it a try. Let's see what the outcome will be." Although Nangong Lingwei pretended to be calm, Lin Feng knew that Nangong Lingwei was beginning to panic. Perhaps in her heart, she was not as confident as what she said. Lin Feng said with a smile, "I'm just teasing you. Don't take this matter to heart." "Humph." Nangong Lingwei snorted coldly and ignored Lin Feng. Her speed was very fast. Lin Feng followed closely behind her. The two of them arrived at Di Juyi's residence. Di Juyi's residence was indeed very grand. 8 huge palaces were located in 8 different directions. Every single one of the huge palaces, it covered an area of at least 2 to 300 mu and was 300 meters tall. It was magnificent and resplendent. The center of the 8 palaces occupied an area of more than 10,000 mu. Various pavilions, terraces, and strange rocks were scattered around. Other than that, there were also many courtyards. However, there were also many cultivators patrolling the area. Di Jue's residence was heavily guarded. Nangong Lingwei brought Lin Feng to a living room. Someone poured a cup of spirit tea for Lin Feng. Nangong Lingwei said, "Lin Gongzi, wait here for a while. I'll go and see my young master now." "All right, go ahead," Lin Feng said. Nangong Lingwei did not stop and quickly left. In the living room, there was only a maidservant beside her. Lin Feng waved the maid away. Lin Feng was the only one left in the living room. Lin Feng summoned Bibi. "Little fellow, help me find Lin Yunsang's whereabouts." Lin Feng said. Bibi was good at the space Dao. This was Bibi's racial talent. Bibi's attainment in the space Dao was even more profound than Lin Feng's. Therefore, it was best to give this task to Bibi. "Yeah, yeah." Bibi patted its chest as though it was assuring Lin Feng that it would definitely complete the task. Then, the little fellow hid in the void and left. When Lin Feng entered the group of palaces, he had already observed the surroundings. He had already observed the situation around him. There were many array formations here, and all of them were in an activated state. To put it bluntly, even a mosquito could not fly freely in this group of palaces. However, Lin Feng was not worried about Bibi at all. With Bibi's usage of the space Dao, even if the little fellow was discovered, she could easily shake off those pursuers. Then, Lin Feng closed his eyes and began to meditate. Not long after, Nangong Lingwei returned. Lin Gongzi, I'm really sorry. Young master had something urgent to attend to earlier, so I didn't get to see him. I'm afraid I won't be able to see young master this time. I'll have to wait for young master to come back. Nangong Lingwei said. Lin Feng already knew that Di Jue would leave. This was because he and Yuji had planned this beforehand. Lin Feng did not know how Yuji lured Di Jue away. Fortunately, everything was developing in the direction Lin Feng had expected. This was enough. Lin Feng said, It's great that Di Jue has left. This way, no one will disturb us. Humph. Nangong Lingwei could not help but snort coldly and said, Lin Gongzi, please conduct yourself with dignity. Although your cultivation base is powerful, I'm not necessarily afraid of you. If you continue to spout nonsense, don't blame me for being rude to you. It's just a joke. Why do you have to be so angry? Since Di Jue has left the Dao Saint Palace, I'll head back first. If Di Jue returns, I'll have to trouble you to inform me. Lin Feng said. Lin Gongzi, don't worry. If my young master returns, I'll inform Lin Gongzi immediately, Nangong Lingwei said, and then sent Lin Feng away. Lin Feng returned to his residence and began to wait for Bibi to return. He wondered how the situation was on Bibi's side. Lin Feng was also quite anxious because time was really limited. Lin Feng did not know when Di Jue would return. If Di Jue returned when he made his move, it would be terrible. Therefore, he had to successfully rescue Lin Yunsong before Di Jue returned. Lin Feng planned to make his move tonight. However, whether he could make his move tonight would depend on Bibi's situation. In the evening, Bibi finally returned. Lin Feng could finally relax. How's the situation? Lin Feng asked. Bibi immediately waved its little paw and squeaked. You're saying the security in the heavenly prison is extremely tight, and there are 2 bodiless celestial experts guarding it? Lin Feng asked. Bibi nodded immediately. Lin Feng's expression turned slightly grave. Lin Feng guessed that one of the 2 bodiless celestial experts might be an expert from the Devil Realm. Who was the other one? Could he be an expert from the Devil Realm as well? Lin Feng did not think so. Now that Di Jue had left the Dao Saint Palace, it was impossible for him to hand Lin Yunsong over to the experts from the Devil Realm for interrogation. Di Jue was a very suspicious person. He would even suspect the people closest to him, let alone the cultivators from the Devil Realm. Therefore, the other bodiless celestial expert should be an expert from Di Jue's side. Could he be an bodiless celestial from the Dao Saint Palace? Lin Feng's expression turned even more grave when he thought of this. If it was an bodiless celestial from the Dao Saint Palace, it would be even more troublesome. It would be very difficult for him to kill the 2 bodiless celestials. If the other bodiless celestial was an bodiless celestial from the Dao Saint Palace, his identity would most likely be exposed. If he did not make a move, Lin Yunsong would definitely die. If he made a move, he might be exposed. However, Lin Feng soon made up his mind. Even if he was exposed, he had to save Lin Yunsong. He could not watch Lin Yunsong suffer a fate worse than death without doing anything. Chapter 43:15. Since he had made up his mind to attack, Lin Feng would follow his plan to achieve his goal. A real man in this world. Something to do. Something not to do. What Lin Feng did was what a real man should do. Lin Feng began to adjust his state of mind. He was waiting for the darkness to descend. Time passed by. Night gradually fell. Lin Feng opened his eyes. He took a deep breath. He was ready to attack. Lin Feng knew that it would be extremely dangerous to deal with the two itinerant immortals this time. However, Lin Feng did not care. So what if he exposed himself? During the time he entered the Dao Saint Palace, he had basically figured out the power of the Dao Saint Palace. He had also figured out the various restrictions in the Dao Saint Palace. Therefore, he had basically achieved his goal. Even if he had to leave the Dao Saint Palace temporarily because he was exposed, it was fine. When the Stone Sovereign's son attacked the Dao Saint Palace, he would sneak in. At that time, the Dao Saint Palace would be in chaos, and not many people would notice him. Lin Feng looked at the night sky outside. He then got up and walked out, blending into the darkness. Lin Feng came to the outside of Di Jue's residence. Under the night sky, from afar, one could see that Di Jue's residence was covered by a huge 8 trigrams formation. The 8 huge palaces were like 8 gods floating in the void. Heavy, immortal, terrifying. It made one feel a sense of reverence involuntarily. Now that the 8 trigrams formation had been activated, if one wanted to barge in, it was impossible. The 8 trigrams formation was mysterious and unpredictable. Di Jue knew how to set up the 8 trigrams formation. This guy really had many tricks up his sleeves. For others, after seeing the huge 8 trigrams formation, they would have completely lost all hope. They would not have the thought of breaking the formation and entering. However, for Lin Feng, it was nothing. Lin Feng knew the Khanate 8 trigrams. Therefore, although the 8 trigrams formation was mysterious and difficult to break, it was not a problem for Lin Feng. Under the night sky, Lin Feng sneaked outside the 8 trigrams formation. Lin Feng performed the formation splitting technique. The densely packed runes combined together to form a powerful formation breaking rune. The runes all flew towards the 8 trigrams formation. Lin Feng's formation breaking runes were very special. If other cultivators were to lay down runes to break the 8 trigrams array, they would most likely trigger a reaction from the 8 trigrams array. At that time, these cultivators would be discovered. However, Lin Feng's array-breaking runes did not cause any reaction from the 8 trigrams array. Everything was being done in silence. After spending about 2 hours, a hole was torn in the 8 trigrams array. This was the result that Lin Feng wanted. He only needed to tear a hole in the array. There was no need to completely break the array. Lin Feng entered the array through the hole that was torn open. Immediately after, the hole returned to its original state. Even at night, there were still people patrolling back and forth. But for Lin Feng, those patrolling soldiers simply couldn't find Lin Feng. He hid in the void and lurked in the direction of the heavenly prison. The array in the void was not a problem for Lin Feng at all. Lin Feng successfully dodged them all. Lin Feng finally arrived at the location of the heavenly prison. In the outer area, there were 9 layers of arrays. After entering the 9 layers of arrays, there were hundreds of guards. Lin Feng couldn't help but be speechless at how strict the security was. Lin Feng quietly passed through the 9 layers of arrays. The benefits of being the successor of the Celestial Master Dao were perfectly displayed at this time. If it was someone else, how difficult would it be to pass through the 9 layers of arrays? It was almost impossible to accomplish. Only Lin Feng could do this. After passing through the 9 layers of arrays and arriving inside, Lin Feng directly used the Space Stop Divine ability. When this divine ability was used, those cultivators were all imprisoned in midair, unable to move at all. Then Lin Feng flicked his finger, and these cultivators' bodies all burst into flames. In the blink of an eye, they turned into ashes. Soon after, Lin Feng cast one restriction after another. Those restrictions sealed the void. No matter how big the commotion in the heavenly prison was, it would not spread out. Lin Feng was no longer worried about being discovered. Then he opened the heavenly prison and entered. "Brat, who are you?" The cultivators guarding the heavenly prison could not help but shout coldly when they saw Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned around and closed the door of the heavenly prison. Then he walked into the heavenly prison. "Capture this brat." The heavenly prison's guard captain shouted coldly. Dozens of guards rushed toward Lin Feng. Wherever Lin Feng passed, the void froze. When Lin Feng passed by, the cultivators' bodies directly burst into flames. Soon, the group of cultivators was reduced to ashes. Lin Feng came in front of the guard captain and asked coldly, "Where's the demon Tao cultivator that was brought here by Di Jue?" "In the deepest part, the deepest part." "Don't kill me, don't kill me," the guard captain said in horror as he looked at Lin Feng with a pleading gaze. He did not want to die. However, his pleading was useless. In the next moment, his body burst into flames and turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. "Brat, let us out. Let us out quickly." There were many prisoners locked up in the heavenly prison. They were probably cultivators who had offended Di Jue and were captured by Di Jue or Di Jue. Those cultivators were locked up in this place. In the deepest part, the old man from the devil world and the Tao Saint Palace's itinerant immortal Wanyang cultivator were torturing Lin Yunsong. They did not dare to perform the soul-searching technique on Lin Yunsong because he was originally from a big clan. There must be a restriction in his mind. Once they performed the soul-searching technique, Lin Yunsong's soul would immediately shatter. They would not get anything. Therefore, they could only torture Lin Yunsong's physical body inhumanely. Once Lin Yunsong's willpower crumbled, when the time came, he would definitely reveal the whereabouts of the Devil Master token. However, Lin Yunsong's willpower was really strong. Although he was tortured day and night, although he was tortured to the point where he wished he was dead, he had never revealed the whereabouts of the Devil Master token. These people would torture Lin Yunsong until he was half dead every time before using spiritual medicine to heal his injuries. Then, they would continue to torture Lin Yunsong until he was half dead. No matter how strong a person's willpower was, they would be tortured repeatedly like this. Eventually, their willpower would collapse. It was only a matter of time. Di Jue and the others believed in their torture method. At this moment, a few cultivators inserted silver needles that were over 10 centimeters long into Lin Yunsong's body. There were already thousands of such silver needles in Lin Yunsong's body. There were poisonous insects that could not be seen with the naked eye crawling on the silver needles. The poisonous insects would crawl into the injured person's body through the silver needles. Although they would not kill the injured person, they would gnaw on the injured person's internal organs, making them wish they were dead. Even with Lin Yunsong's strong willpower, his face could not help but turn as pale as paper when the poisonous insects gnawed on his internal organs. His forehead was filled with cold sweat. Due to the pain, his body kept struggling. Chapter 43:16. At that moment, the sound of someone venting came from outside. "What's going on outside?" The old man from the devil realm frowned. "Let's go outside and take a look," Wanyang cultivator said. "Yes." Immediately, several cultivators rushed outside. However, at that moment, a cultivator walked over. "Hall Master Lin, why are you here?" When he saw Lin Feng, he frowned. Wanyang cultivator couldn't help but frown. Lin Feng hadn't seen Wanyang cultivator before, but Wanyang cultivator and several other loose immortal experts had secretly observed Lin Feng. That was why they knew Lin Feng. I'm here to save someone, Lin Feng said indifferently. Save someone? You want to save this person? What's your relationship with him? The old man from the devil realm asked. Friend, Lin Feng said indifferently. Friend, you're risking your life to save a friend. Interesting. When I capture you, I'll use your life to threaten Lin Yunsong. Let's see if he'll still be as stubborn as he is now. The old man from the devil realm said sinisterly. Wanyang cultivator's eyes lit up when he heard that. Lin Feng, you don't want to be the hall master of the mission hall, but you insist on getting involved in this mess. Since that's the case, only death awaits you. Wanyang cultivator's eyes flashed with killing intent. Lin Feng was an enemy, not a friend. These people were vicious and merciless, killing without blinking an eye. They wouldn't show mercy. Lin Feng sneered. You can't kill me. Shameless boasting. Wanyang cultivator sneered, then looked at the old man from the devil realm and said, Fellow Taoist, this kid's means are quite terrifying. I heard that he has the strength of a loose immortal. If we work together to deal with him and have the others support us, we'll be able to deal with him soon. Wanyang cultivator was a cautious person, so his suggestion was definitely the best one. Lin Feng, leave quickly. Don't risk your life for a cripple like me, Lin Yunsong shouted. He hoped that Lin Feng would leave. His dantian was crippled. He had lost all his cultivation. So what if he was rescued? At that time, he would be a cripple. Moreover, it was too dangerous for Lin Feng to stay. Lin Yunsong didn't want to see Lin Feng take risks. Uncle Lin, don't be so pessimistic. Soon, I will be able to save you. Lin Feng said, whoosh whoosh. At this time, Wanyang Sanren and the old man from the devil world charged towards Lin Feng. Both of them had extremely high cultivation bases and were not primary stage loose immortals. Wanyang cultivator was a 5th heavenly layer loose immortal. As for the elder from the fiend realm, he was at the 8th firmament of the itinerant immortal realm. With Lin Feng's current methods, it would be very difficult for him to defeat Wanyang Sanren, who had a weaker cultivation. Not to mention, against the joint attack of Wanyang cultivator and the devil realm elder, the two of them joined forces. Anyone would feel that the situation was thorny or even hopeless. But for Lin Feng, he didn't feel that way, because Lin Feng had reared a swarm of insects. Facing the attacks of the two experts, Lin Feng directly took out the swarm of great desolate demon refining insects and immortal devouring insects. Then Emperor Archaic, Ancestor Insect, BB, and Blackie all flew out. Lin Feng fought with the others. He liked this kind of group fight the most. This was the easiest way. Damn it. When the swarm of insects was summoned, the two experts couldn't help but roar in anger. They had to resist the attacks of the insects. Therefore, they couldn't free themselves to deal with Lin Feng. Use the insect repellent spirit smoke to disperse these insects. The old man from the devil world shouted. The insect repellent spirit smoke was a type of poisonous smoke that was very difficult to control. Even in the devil world, only 2 people knew how to use it. One of them was the old man from the devil world. He was surrounded by the insects and didn't have time to use the insect repellent spirit smoke. Yes, ancestor. The other expert from the devil world who knew how to control the insect repellent spirit smoke hurriedly responded. However, that cultivator didn't manage to use the insect repellent spirit smoke because when he attacked, Emperor Archaic showed his might. Emperor Archaic flapped his wings. Bang! That cultivator suffered a calamity. His body exploded, and he died on the spot. Emperor Archaic didn't give that cultivator a chance to attack at all. A large number of insects kept attacking the Wanyang cultivator and the old man from the devil world. At the same time, They kept attacking the surrounding cultivators. Whether it was the cultivators from the Devil World or the Tao Sacred Palace, they couldn't resist the attacks of the insects. Under the frenzied attacks of the insects, cultivators kept dying. It was a completely one-sided battle. Lin Feng's swarm of insects wasn't just for show. Lin Feng joined forces with the ancestor insect and Emperor Archaic to deal with the Wanyang cultivator and the old man from the Devil World. These two fellows were truly terrifying. Even if Lin Feng and the others joined forces to deal with them, they still couldn't defeat these two. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that it was extremely difficult to kill such powerful existences. So Lin Feng didn't think of killing these two loose immortals now. His main goal this time was to save people. Nothing else mattered. Bibi and Little Black had already rushed to the prison where Lin Yunsong was being punished. There were more than 10 guards here. When they saw the two little beasts rushing over, they all had a sinister smile on their faces. They didn't put Bibi and Little Black in their eyes at all. Yeah. Bibi waved its little claws and instantly imprisoned the void. Little Black's body emitted a dark power that enveloped a group of cultivators. The lifespan of that group of cultivators was instantly devoured. The group of cultivators turned into a pile of bones in the blink of an eye and scattered on the ground. Bibi and Little Black's cooperation was truly flawless. Even Lin Yunsong couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression when he saw this scene. Bibi and Little Black broke the chains that bound Lin Yunsong. Then they rushed out of the prison with Lin Yunsong. Seeing Bibi and Lin Yunsong succeed, Lin Feng's face revealed joy. "Let's go," Lin Feng said in a deep voice. He let Bibi and Little Black take Lin Yunsong back to the time and space first. Then Lin Feng, the primordial ancestral insect, Emperor Archaic, and the two insect swarms fought and retreated. Courting death, courting death, courting death. The Devil Realm Elder roared angrily, his killing intent monstrous. It wasn't easy to catch Lin Yunsong. How could he let Lin Yunsong be rescued? He hadn't obtained the Devil Lord token yet. If Lin Yunsong was rescued, perhaps he wouldn't be able to obtain the Devil Lord token anymore. Therefore, the Devil Realm Elder went completely berserk. He actually grew 3 heads and 6 arms. His battle strength greatly increased. Then he began to counterattack crazily. A large number of insect swarms were killed by the Devil Realm Elder. Seeing the insect swarms continuously die, the corner of Lin Feng's mouth couldn't help but twitch violently. The insect swarms that were not easy to cultivate were killed by the Devil Realm Elder in large numbers. Lin Feng's heart was also incomparably pained.